Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Good morning. Today is Thursday, May the 21st, and this is the Governing Board regular meeting for the month of May. I'm Christine Novello. I'm the president of the Governing Board. I invite you to please join us and rise if you can for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, good morning, everyone, and welcome. We're very pleased to see you here today, whether you're here in person or online. We do have 8 of 9 directors present. We have Director Sandra Forsey, who is participating remotely. Good morning, Sandra.
Good morning.
We have Director Kay Williams, who's not able to join us this morning, and I recommend that Director Williams' absence be considered excused. Any concerns or objections to that? Seeing none, that absence is excused, and we have quorum with 8 of 9 directors. Quick review of our meeting procedures. The Governing Board and its committees conduct all their meetings in compliance with Arizona Planned Community Association open meeting laws per ARS 33-1804 and in concert with RCSCW bylaws, policies, and standing rules. Parliamentary procedures, as outlined in the most recent edition of Robert's Rules of Order, will also be followed in all meetings as appropriate, consistent with Bylaw 3.07, Procedures for Owner-Member Meetings, and Standing Rules number 2 and number 3. So with all the technicalities aside, well, not so much technicalities, but important reminders and such, please know that, again, we're here for several purposes. There'll be several votes that are taken today. Whether you're here in person or online, know that the floor will be open for comments and questions on any item that we put to a vote today. If you are online, again, welcome. Just realize that you're using YouTube. We have no control over how YouTube functions, but there is a bit of a delay between what you're hearing and what we're saying here in the room. As a result, any comments that you make or questions that you pose may be a little out of sequence. We'll do our best to sequence them together. We will, as we started last session, we will go to online comments and questions first, then to in-room comments, and then back to online comments. So hopefully we'll be able to give you enough time to catch up and to make your comments and questions online. For directors here with us at the table, let's make sure that our phones are silenced and off the table so we don't get as much interference. Okay, so with those aside, let's look to our meeting minutes. First, we had a special organizational meeting on April the 23rd. Those minutes were attached. Any concerns or modifications to those? Seeing those, I believe we have consensus to file those as written. On to our regular meeting minutes from April the 23rd, a very lengthy meeting. Any concerns, comments, questions on those regular minutes? Okay, so no objections. We will file those as written as well. Thank you, directors. We'll move right on to 3.01. It's at these meetings, we've been very fortunate to have quick updates from on the process of our master plan and how things are proceeding through our on-site project manager, who's Sabrina Elevato. So Sabrina, today's update, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. So here will be a quick master plan update. Now that we're through the engagement phase of this project, Barry Dunn's been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, getting ready for the next phase, which is visioning. So kind of a quick recap from the end of April. We had our 2 community preliminary findings presentations, and those were both held here in the lecture hall. We had one on Monday, April 27th at 9:30. That session was, that session had 35 audience members in attendance, and we also live streamed that session. we had about 26 online viewers. On Tuesday, we did a 5:30 p.m. session, and we had about 20 audience members in attendance. And both the presentation report from that preliminary findings presentation by Jason Gink with Barry Dunn and the recorded session is found on our master plan website for anyone who has not had a chance to view it. It's been great to see, though. We have over 500 views of that session, which is found on YouTube or that master plan website. So pretty good turnout. Happy to see new faces and everyone that came out to those on-site presentations. During both of those sessions, Jason Gank with Barry Dunn, he had actually brought in some comment cards for those that maybe didn't want to speak up at the podium after the presentation. So the audience members could write on these comment cards, drop them off in a box. Jason would either get back to them on the website or at the next on-site presentation, which I'll talk about here in a couple of minutes. But some of the written comments I just wanted to share, some fun ideas, some good ideas from our members here. So one was to keep the food and bar at the golf courses simple. An example that was given was at Echo Mesa, maybe make that a Southwest theme and make it, include a taqueria. One was that a couple members agreed that we should have a community center. There was a couple of the comment cards dropped off about acquiring Hillcrest and making that a central park for the community. And then we had a lot of questions come through about public transportation along with shaded parking and including some solar opportunities there. So I don't want to step or overtake Jason's thunder when he comes in June, so I'm not going to go too much into answering all those comments. I'll leave it to the experts, but some really good comments coming through from those preliminary findings and engagement with the community. So right now during the process, again, a lot of behind the scenes work is happening with Barry Dunn and the partnering consultants. They're working on organizing all of the data so far and putting it into reports. So that way during this next phase, which is the visioning phase, we can come together, the Barry Dunn team, the governing board directors, staff, and kind of come up with our future recommendations and have that guidance from Barry Dunn to move forward. I do have a flyer up on the screen coming up on June 18th at the annual membership meeting. Jason Gank, again with project manager of Barry Dunn, will be on site to give our community update and governing board update and where we're going to go these next steps going through summer. So a lot of work being done, again, behind the scenes, but we're happy to give these updates and happy to have Jason back on June 18th. So that will be my update for today.
Excellent. And just again, to remind us all, the idea is to continue to work through the analysis and visioning through the summer, and the governing board and the community will start to expect to see some of the final recommendations in the fall. Is that still?
That still will be the timeline. We're hoping that we can kind of give a sneak peek to some of those ideas at the June 18th meeting. Jason and his team's working diligently to get some of those coming forward. And then the plan is to come back in September when the board is re-engaged or back on site, then to have the adoption process start.
Excellent, thanks. Yeah. Directors, any questions for Sabrina today? Great. Any big questions for Sabrina from our residents? If you could come to, just on the plan itself, please, if you could come to down to the podium and give us your name and rec card number, that would be great. Nick, are there any questions that have been put in online on the topic of just the master plan update? Okay, thank you.
Make one note too while he was coming down. This master plan presentation on June 18th, along with the whole annual membership meeting, will be live streamed. So if people can't make it into attendance, we'll also post the presentation by Jason on our master plan website.
Excellent,
afterwards.
and it'll be shown for those of you who are already out of town or will be traveling. You can watch it live. Sir, and your name and rec card number, please.
My name is Jim McLeod, rec card number 133201. It's an easy question. You said look on the website for what's going on. I didn't catch the website.
We're going to go to suncitywest.com /masterplan.
Okay,
Yeah.
That was it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Sorry about, made you come all the way down, but, all right, thank you. And any other comments, Director Turner? Okay, great. Thank you, Sabrina. Let's move on to really the highlight of the meeting today. Presume that this is why most of you are here. Although we have several agenda points, the big agenda point for today is to discuss and to agree to a financial plan for the coming fiscal year. So under 4.01, the first thing I wanted to do was just answer a question that was posed from residents, but through Director Grom at our workshop meeting a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago now. We were asked, one of the options that we're looking at, or we've been looking at as a part of a budget and finance recommendation for our budget for next year, included some potential funding for the future master plan implementations. So the question was asked, what's the difference, or is there really a difference between that recommendation and a special assessment? And the concern that was raised was, isn't that recommendation really a special assessment? So we wanted to answer that. We did get some legal advisory on this from our CSCW counsel, and we wanted to answer that question before we move into the budget considerations for today. So the first thing I wanted to remind us all, we just got a bit of an update, but the master plan is not a single project, right? This is a comprehensive view of recommendations, vision, for lack of a better phrase, for 5 to 10 years. Where will Sun City West go over the coming time? That information or that report back will come to the community and to the governing board. The governing board will then take that as input into their next round of strategic initiative selections. It's the governing board who will select and identify what the priorities will be from that master plan. Once those priorities have been identified, the governing board will have to fund those priorities. So as a part of answering this question, our council did concur with our viewpoint, or the viewpoint of some of the folks that were talking about this before. The governing board has a couple of options available to it in terms of funding strategic initiatives and investments. One of those is a special assessment. Another could be continuing to increase our reserve fund through increases in APFs and or increases in our dues. And again, this would be done over time. Those are two viable options, viable being they are permissible under our bylaws. They would not violate our bylaws, nor would they violate any known statute. So I wanted to make sure that we answered Director Grom on camera and in front of you all, because it's a concern that several residents have raised as well. So it's not just one person's view. So that was our legal counsel. Just again, to remind us all that we're looking at recommendations here today. We're not making if you will, a comprehensive 5-year decision, nor are we deciding what our strategic priorities are. As Sabrina just updated us, we don't have the master plan results yet. So the governing board has not exactly chosen those priorities. So we're not prepared yet to choose the strategic priorities. But I did want to ensure that as we go forward, everybody understands on the board and residents that the governing board will always make a choice that is in compliance with our bylaws. That's our fiduciary responsibility. We have to support the bylaws. We have to support the laws. So it was incumbent on us to take the question very seriously, and we did get some legal advisory. So going forward, when the governing board does decide on priorities, if there's a need to increase reserves over time, those are two of the options available. One would be a special assessment, and a different option would be increases to dues and or APFs over time. So I wanted to just give a quick update on that answer. And that data, whether you agree with it or not, we're going to have discussions about all of that as we go into and consider our budget, our financial plan for the coming fiscal year. So just know you'll have the opportunity to comment, ask questions on that point and anything else related as we go forward into the budget process. So that's my update under 4.01, and we're going to go right into 4.02 and talk about, again, the funding or the budget as we go. So governing board directors are aware of this, I wanted to make sure all our residents are aware as well. We expect that there is going to be more than one motion made this morning related to our budget. Rather than, again, there's full transparency here. This happens in corporations, it happens in governments, it happens in governing boards. We have been talking about the budget since the beginning of this year, right? So really the capital part of the budget since the end of last year. 4 to 5 months of meetings, and especially over the past 5 meetings here in the governing board, it's clear that we are not fully aligned, and that's okay. We should have differences of opinion. Governing board directors and residents have had the opportunity to comment. It's evident to most of us that going forward, we need to align, at least 6 of us need to agree on a budget. That's in our bylaws as well. A budget requires at least 6 directors to agree. So again, we expect that there will be more than one motion to consider this morning. And remember too that this annual financial plan or budget that's on the table, right? We have a proposal that has come to us, a recommendation, not an approval, but a recommendation from our Budget and Finance Committee. So we're going to start with that. This is the recommendation that we've been discussing and debating as a board for several meetings now, but I'm going to invite our treasurer, who's also the chairperson of our Budget and Finance Committee, that's Director Becknell. If you'll please read the motion for 4.02 in terms of our financial plan approval, the proposed financial plan.
Thank you. I move that the governing board approve the RCSCW fiscal year 2026-27 annual financial plan budget as proposed, which includes a $42 increase in annual dues to $640 annually, and a $500 increase in the asset preservation fee to $5,900.
Do I have a second? So directors, a second does not imply that you're voting for the motion. It only opens the floor to discussion. Thank you, Alan. Director Schlemmer. So Director Becknell, we've talked about this before, but for anybody who's joining us, could you please break down, there's a portion of the proposed dues increase and a portion of the proposed asset preservation fee increase. A portion of that is for operating expenses and budget, and a portion is for the master plan, correct? So could you break that down for us?
That's correct. So on the $42 increase in dues, $22 would have been our general operating budget increase, and the other $20 was to begin what we were calling a savings account for the master plan. And this was a one-year commitment, even though we know it's going to be over maybe 5 years, but every year it'll have to be voted on and reviewed. The second part was the APF, asset preservation fee increase, of $500, and it was a $200 increase to the operating budget, and a $300 increase to, again, boost the savings account for the master plan for next year.
And then when, excuse me, we all know each other by first name. So Director Becknell, when we're talking about a savings account, that's our reserve fund, correct? It's not a separate account.
That's right. We've been calling it the savings account, but it's money to go in to boost the reserve fund to have monies available that come out of the master plan so we can begin those projects sooner than later.
Right. And for all of us, either online or for the directors here, if you go to, we have 2 separate proposals in front of us. Again, full transparency, but the one that's marked as proposed, that would, if you turn to page 3 of that proposed area, you'll see that there's a series of assumptions there with member dues. And again, that's where it's going through the operations plan and so forth. The assumptions page is important because this documents the things like what's the maximum amount of salary increase that's funded, what's the health insurance increases, what are the projected golf rounds, all the sources of revenue and primary drivers of expense. Also, and this is in all packets, by the way. And then if you move to page 11, if you just keep going through, pages 11 and 12, they're not numbered, but they follow page 10. So that shows the current fiscal year, and it's the same, if you will, salary ranges and grades, or salary ranges by grade. That's what's included in the salary line item. If we move on to page, I believe it's, page 13, I might have some of the pages wrong, but page 13 gives a summary of the benefits. So what we're looking at here is the salary policy, the benefit policy, and the proposed budget. Lastly, and Director Becknell, keep me honest here, but if you go all the way to the bottom, and Cliff as well, it is page 26 of the packet, shows a 5-year run rate here. And this is our financial plan. As Director Becknell explained to us all, today our consideration is for a budget for the coming fiscal year 26-27. So you can see what page 26 lays out is that budget, and then the projected impacts and forecasted results from next year all the way through the coming years. So we always do a 5-year projected financial plan. Calling your attention, again, we discussed this last week, but that fully funded balance percentage in fiscal year 2031 goes down to 41%. And this is without any additional spending for the master plan. This is just the operating budget as proposed. So all of that being said, we have had at least 5 meetings where we've expressed ourselves. The last workshop, we went into a lot of details with our viewpoints. Director Chatton was not here, so if you want to repeat any of those viewpoints, directors, the floor is open for comments. Director Chatton, since you were not here in person as well, if you wanted to add any, you've made those comments in meetings prior to last week, but anything that any director wants to comment on before we open the floor to our residents. Director Grom first.
Yeah, I have a question. My understanding was the motion was for an increase of $42 to the annual dues and an APF increase of $500. Is that correct? Is that, okay. That was the proposed budget. However, looking at what I see as the proposed budget in the packet says a proposed change to $620. That's only a $22 increase and an APF rate of $200. So is this proposed budget in line with the motion that was just made?
It is. It does include those extra amounts for master plan funding. It's not stated here in the assumptions
It's
page.
not in the assumptions. Okay.
But that's where those additional, that's where the additional monies come from, in terms of when you total everything up, it is one dues increase and one APF increase. So we wanted to be fully transparent and total it up
Well, then
for the motion that we are approving today.
okay, so this assumption page then technically is not part of the motion.
It will be included in the minutes as what we approve. So should we approve this or not, we should consider adding that in. Would you agree?
And we're calling out, so that's the operating, the budget packet that's in front of you is the operating budget and the 5-year projection based on the operating budget. The additional funding, which Director Beck now explained, is to help bolster the reserve fund for master plan projects coming out of the master plan. So the motion is what you're voting on
Right.
in total.
The assumptions really just lay out the operating budget as it was presented, right? So we would need to append to that, right? That the additional monies that we are considering would be for that purpose. Director Pyskowski?
But
and
on
then
page
the
3,
Director Trapp.
page 3 of the proposed, line 2 says only $200. That's what he's saying.
Yes, I know, I
And
understand.
so
We would need
her
to add,
proposal does not meet our assumptions.
we would need to change the assumptions page or document somewhere in this package what we're doing with the extra money. You're correct. Who's amiss? Director Turner, I think you had a question.
Back to the reserve fund of what that additional master plan funding would be, multiple times, modeled it out. It's 286,000 in the first year, 544,000 each additional year in the dues, and then it's 330,000 additional in APFs per year for however long it's in place. So those are the two numbers. So 286 plus 330, approximately 600,000. An additional right to the reserve fund, not impacting the operations in any way.
Director Turner, you had a question or comment?
No, just a comment. I spoke in favor of this at the governing board workshop. I did state at the time I wasn't comfortable with such a big rise in the annual dues. And having spoken with some residents since that meeting and before this meeting, I'd just like everybody to know that I've changed my position on that. I don't believe at the moment that we have sold, if you like, or explained to the membership fully and in a comprehensive way that's widely understood why we were taking that approach for building up the funds for the master plan. And there's a lot of folks out there are saying, I want to see what's in it first before I put any money towards it. I would still support the underlying $22 increase, and the APF increase, but not that additional $20.
So what, and thank you for the comment. As I alluded when we started this, what we'll do is, I recommend, for the purposes of clarity, that rather than modify the motion that was put forward, that we consider it as a whole and then go back to and if we do not garner 6 votes, then we will consider alternative proposals at that point. So thank you for the comment. I just wanted you to be aware, and for residents to be aware, while it's certainly allowable to revise the motion, we're trying to keep things a little clearer. Although our parliamentarians have weighed in on this approach and will concur for today. Let's put it that way. So that's what we've chosen. Thank you for that. Any other comments from directors? Director Schlemmer.
At the outset, I'm not proposing any change. I just want to share, I'm similar to Director Turner. One of the things I think in this role is talking to the community. So when the budget was proposed at the last meeting, I similarly expressed concern similar to Mr. Turner and so forth. And after speaking with members of the community, I do agree that there has been significant concern raised, enough to warrant my reconsideration of my earlier stated position. Thank you.
Any other directors? Director Grom?
I'm going to raise this point now because it's going to come up whether we approve this budget or a revised budget. But my understanding of our reserve study or our reserve program is generally it's a financial planning tool, and we put money aside for future needs. Is that correct? Okay. With that being said, we are now looking to actually put additional money aside for these master plan items, which are not really even in our reserve study. So we are intentionally saving money that we don't know how it's going to be spent. Now, we can legally do it. We can have 50%, 60% of a fully funded balance. That's okay. But that money is coming out of somebody's pocket. And in this case, with either the proposed budget or even the revised budget, which we might get to, both of those are a pretty significant increase in the asset preservation fee. So we are asking people to pay for something that we don't even know what it is or what it might be.
Well, thanks for the comments, always, right? But remember too that the fully funded balance isn't designed to fund for the future. That's literally to make sure that we will not dip below important considerations. We're very fortunate and pretty liberal with the 40% policy that we currently have. We're able to be because our operations do fund, our dues that we collect do fund our operations, right? We're not funding our day-to-day operations from our reserve fund. Some planned communities require their APF type of fees to fund their operations as well. So we have revenue to count on as well. So that's fortunate for us. So the 40% is by policy, and you're right? When you look ahead to where we stand, even with our currently forecasted expenditures, we're very close to that 40%. But thank you. We will, let's make sure we come back to your comment about any proposed revisions, and we'll revisit that then. Anything that you wanted to add in terms of answering Director Grom's?
You look at the budget goals, one of those budget goals is to continue to not only preserve what we have, but to enhance the community. So now that's up to interpretation, how much you want to dig or go further into that. So there's nothing done here to somehow, it's all done in a way that basically invests into the community. That's what we're trying to do. That's our motive. That's our only motive. It is. It's to build a fund to invest in the community. So this board gets to decide if and how much we want to do that. And this was, we did this at the request of the board and of the Budget and Finance Committee. That's why this was done. So this isn't somehow like this operations trying to build a reserve fund because we want to do it. We're just trying to plan and be good fiduciaries for the future. So that's the motive behind this, which falls in line with our budget goals and our vision and mission statement for recreation centers of Sunset West.
And as I recall, I actually went back and watched the tape, so it's not as I recall, as I confirmed for myself when the governing board and Budget and Finance Committee started looking at getting excited about the future. We started looking at, would we have enough money raised in the future? And one of the questions asked at the Budget and Finance Committee was, what would be the impact of a special assessment? What's involved in that, and how much would that be as well? So it's not as if this was not considered. The recommendation was to move forward, Budget and Finance's recommendation was to move forward in alignment with much of what we've done in the past 33 years that we've been managing our own finances and our future since we founded the governing board and became self-managed. So we have been able to project, as Director Grom had just mentioned, we would project these items, plan for these items, and come up with a way to pay for substantial investments through the use of our reserves. We have not yet issued or levied a special assessment. It is available to the governing board if that's as an option going forward. But before I comment as well on my viewpoints, any other comments? I don't want to color any of the board's comments. Not that I could ever do that anyway. We're all very strong-minded individuals. If I may add, I'm looking around. Director Forsey, is there anything that you wanted to add before I chime in?
No, thank you, though.
Okay, thank you. I too have been a very large proponent, very vocal proponent of saving money for some of our future investments. I've been consistently advocating for that and do agree with the concept. I think it's a sound concept, and as I just mentioned, it is a viable option that is possible and in compliance with our bylaws and with statute. That's a very important thing to know. But when I went out myself as well and started sort of fact-checking my own viewpoints, I admittedly went directly to some residents who participated in the master plan process and were also very vocal, very, strong proponents, went to folks who shared my views. And I did that deliberately because I wanted to repeat back to them $42 increase and a $500 increase. Every single person sort of, sharp intake of breath. They really weren't considering that total. What that told me is that the governing board has not done a good enough job yet of articulating the price tag potential. And also, to some of my other directors' points, we've not yet done a good enough job, nor could we, in terms of articulating what this money would be used for. So like some of my directors, I am, as an individual, very supportive of the operations budget and this proposal that Budget and Finance has come up with. I'm a strong believer in the future, one of the strongest advocates that you could find. However, our job as fiduciaries is to do what's in the best interest of the association. I don't think we've done a good enough job of explaining what this would be used for, and my viewpoint has also changed on that point. Just so that we're all aware. Now let's, with that, unless there are any other director comments? Any comments yet, Director Turner, online on the topic?
Yes, we've got 2 comments here, and YouTube has done its usual job of splitting one comment into many, so I hope I can do this without messing it up. The first is from Bruce Lee's 135422. I'm confused. Board President just finished stating a decision hadn't been made regarding the method for which additional funding would be made, and now the Treasurer just made a motion to approve an expenditure to increase the dues and APF. The budget assumptions don't list anything regarding that. Where is the transparency? Nothing in assumptions. And there's a comment from Deborah Johnson, 130208. How do you have a savings plan for the master plan when there's no approved action item for the master plan? To date, there are no proposed recommendations.
Both good comments. So to the first comment about nothing in the assumptions page, that is true. And we recognize that that would need to be added to the assumptions page. So we would capture that as a part of these minutes and ensure that the assumptions page is updated to reflect what we're discussing here. To the second comment about the list of action items, again, I believe that we mentioned that. We recognize that this is that is a true statement, that there are no approved strategic action items from the governing board at this point. So, so with that, we open the floor to in-room residents. We have a nice group of people who have showed up today, and we thank you for taking the time. So the floor is open for in-room comments, and then we'll circle back to online comments if there are any more that accrue. Come on up to queue up at the microphone, and please give us your name and rec card number. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Frank Bagnotto, 117679. President Novello, members of the board, good morning. I'm here today to point out 2 things to you. First, the financials as of the end of April illustrate a glaring example of the residents continuing to be overcharged by an administration that seems to operate with no accountability. I'm speaking specifically of the outrageous amount of budgeted operating expenses versus the actual results. As posted, the budget amount of expenses was $25.8 million, but only $24.6 million was spent, under budget by $1.2 million. All of this inures to the discretion of the administration. This over-budgeting and underspending is nothing new, and it's shameful. It's gone on for years, and all of you should be sick of it by now, but almost none of you even question it. And as board members, you should. President Novello, you were on record in the 319 board meeting admitting you did not even understand the CFO's answers to Director Grom's questions. Plain and simple, it's an administration reaching far deeper into the residents' pockets than they should be, but they get away with it every time. This practice must stop now. Second, this notion that a special assessment for future unknowns must start immediately is another money grab by an out-of-control administration. Get this straight. Regardless of how the CFO wants to sneak it through, the idea alone screams special assessment, and it must be treated as such. Imagine going to Safeway and the cashier insists you must prepay for next year's groceries, even though you have no idea when you will buy them, what you will be buying, or what they will cost you when you do buy. That's exactly what you are telling the residents right now. Give us the money, we'll let you know later what we're going to do with it. We have to pass the bill so you'll know what's in it. Talk about the cart before the horse. Have you lost all sense of fiscal responsibility? Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. It was always a pleasure to serve with you and to talk with you. Your comments are always well-reasoned. I understood Director Grom's questions very well on 319, and I don't believe I'm on record as saying I did not understand them. I just disagreed. Nonetheless, I'm going to turn to you. If you wouldn't mind, would you respond, or would you care to respond, either Stephen or Cliff, to some of the other questions about April results and what they mean?
Yeah, well, first of all, personally, I'm not trying to sneak anything through. Take a exception to that comment. All right. So as far as the financial statement goes, the bulk of the savings were in wages and benefits and utilities. Okay? That's the vast majority of the savings. Utilities, I didn't know we were going to have a very wet overseeding period and a very mild year in terms of temperatures and rain. And we know that when it rains, we don't run our pumps at our golf courses. So that's that. In terms of wages and benefits, the vast majority of that is in our golf division. And we've had some things happen this year that were abnormal in terms of staffing. And we've also, there's some other factors that I can't really get into in terms of staffing. And it created a favorable variance that goes into the reserve fund. Ultimately, reserve funding that gets bolstered results in less impact to dues increases in future years. Per policy, all savings to the budget, all, go into the reserve fund and help bolster the reserve fund. If we didn't have the savings from the prior year into the reserve fund, the funds wouldn't be available in the reserve fund, which would therefore drop the fully funded balance percentage, which would therefore result in increased dues and fees. That's just reality. Okay, so there's nothing nefarious going on here. There's no money grab. Okay, the funds go into the reserve fund, which help enhance the community and get invested back into the community, which the members get the result from in property values, amenities, and services. So that's all I'll say about that's what I want to say about that. When we put the budget together, it is our best guess estimate of what's going to happen. There's something going on in Iran right now, which is driving up prices right now for us. They're not baked into this presented budget. They are in terms of contingencies. We do build contingencies in the budget. And so as we look at this budget and that's presented to this board and they're voting on it, there are uncertainties in next year that could happen, which could, cause a decrease in our reserve funding. So when we put a budget together, it's with all those things in mind. There's no money grab. There's nothing nefarious. We're not trying to hide anything. Everything's presented out front for months and months at various communities. It's run through our Budget and Finance Committee, who are experts and very qualified, and everything is on the up and up. There's nothing nefarious going on. So I just want to respond to those things. Thank you.
Anything that you wanted to add, Stephen? And although board directors can speak for themselves, I'm going to assure you and the community that you could not be more wrong about our fiduciary responsibility and the fact that we are paying as close attention as we could. Just because we disagree with some of our residents does not mean we're not paying attention. I guarantee you that we have spent more money than, more time, not money, more time than you could ever imagine, and lost more sleep than you could ever consider while reviewing all of these proposals. We take it very seriously. And so to allege that we're not is just insulting. You are welcome to your opinion, but I wanted to say, for the record, we've looked at this very closely. We take this very seriously. And yes, we know that we are budgeting a fully staffed budget, which means when we struggle to fill some of those roles, they are going to go unfilled for a portion of the year. But we want to have the money to fill those roles. We want to have the ability to take care of our golf courses as they deserve to be taken care of. So that's why we consider the budget and we do this budgeting as we do. I understand and acknowledge that you, sir, and several other residents and a few of our governing board also have some concerns about it. We discuss it here in front of you all. So we take it seriously, very seriously. We know what we're doing. We're looking very closely, and nothing is being done under the covers. Next comment?
Do I have to write in again?
You can just
No.
read your first name if you want, but you've already signed in, so
Okay,
thank you, sir.
Jim McLeod. First, I want to say you guys are doing an exceptional job for what you have to do. Second, I want to ditto the fear of collecting excess reserve on a possible spending in the future. That you end up with money with nothing to do with it. What happens with that? It gets spent somehow. That's a fear probably of the entire community. Okay. We have great facilities here, wonderful. Some of our facilities are nationally ranked, lawn bowling, golf courses, bowling alley. These are wonderful, and they're all being maintained by our current budget. I'm not sure what the master plan is going to do. I don't think anybody knows what it's going to do, but we don't have to be the spot in the entire world for everybody that lives here. We need comfortable facilities to keep us entertained and recreational. One thing I want to add real quick, I got 40 seconds. On the budget, I am concerned bowling and golf and other things that the public use that we pay for and they don't. Lizard Acres, when they have a band or something, people come in from all over. They're not charged at all. We pay for it, but they come and enjoy it. Golf courses, it's ranked at, the public pays during the winter $25 more than members. It should be much more. And bowling, it's just a few cents. That should be up also. That could help.
Did you need more time to finish, or are you?
One last thing.
You can request more time. Any concerns, directors? Please
Okay,
proceed.
Just real briefly. And some of the programs that are being done, and whoever thought of it, and I'm sure it was a good intention, but the Be Kind program, I don't know how much it costs, but it's a complete waste of money. Everybody should be kind, and just telling them is not going to make them better.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, Chris Waller, 140-558. So I've got a different view of this. I look at this as we might be making a mistake if we push off this savings for future thing. You know, we just asked all of our residents, what would you like? And there's things that are going to come out of it. I don't know exactly what, but there's things that are going to come out of it that are going to cost money. The people who would like to not pay this year, I would ask them a question: are you willing to pay twice as much next year so that we can get this done? Because what happens is, imagine having a big wedding anniversary, your big 40th wedding anniversary, and you want to take a big trip. You're not sure where yet. You have to save ahead of time for that. If you wait until that year, then you have to save twice as much or 3 times as much, or you push it off to a 45th wedding anniversary. I kind of see right now that the people who are against raising fees $42 would have been against $31, would have been against $22, would have been against $84. And I understand people don't want to spend more money, but going through the master planning sounds like a futile exercise if we're not prepared to step up and budget for these in the future, which is a little different from what I'm hearing from a lot of people, but that's my opinion.
And thanks for the comments. Just to remind us all, to remind you and to remind us all, we do have some considerable reserves that are available for the governing board to use in year one. It may not be, it won't be enough to pay for the entire vision, but there are some reserves. So the governing board, as it considers its options next year, even without the additional funding, would not be completely left without options. There's a familiar face at the microphone. Please introduce yourself to those who don't know you.
Good morning. My name is Tim Hurley. I spent 8 years on the governing board and was past president. And I'm confused as to how this whole scenario is being put together. Because the amount of money that goes into the dues, there's already a segment of that 7 or 8% that's designated to go directly into the reserve fund, correct? But yet you're going to put this into the operating budget for later on to use against a capital project. That's the wrong way to do it. If you really want to put all that money into the reserve, designate it as going directly into the reserve. Yet you say it will be, but that's not what the appearance is. The appearance is it's going into the operating budget, and the operating budget and the capital budget are 2 separate things. Yes, they're all in the same account, but they're handled by the policies and bylaws completely separate. So
The allocation gets increased to cover the additional funding to go into the reserve fund. That's how it works. So it does go in. It doesn't go into operations. We have our operating budget. So
then why not designate it as going in as part of the 8%?
It is designated. It will be designated. If it's approved, it will be designated and go directly into the
here's the
reserve
other thing. The whole thing about paying it forward, there is a mechanism already on board to do things like this. If they come up with a great master plan project that they want to do, you can always do a facts and finding at that time. And the board can approve the money outside of the budget. Paying it forward creates the impression that it's creating a slush fund to be used for anything that might come along. And I think that's the wrong impression to send to the residents. The other thing is there's something that's, I'm going to say hidden in this, and that is over the past several years, the idea of charging for credit card fees has been before the board for many, many years. This year, it wasn't before the board. It was presented at a GM Ops meeting that we were going to start charging residents to use their credit cards. It's not in the assumption. It's nowhere else in the budget. You show the savings on the bank fees, but nowhere else do you tell the people that they're going to be, if they use their credit card, they're going to be charged.
Well, would you like to answer that first, Cliff, before I respond, or?
So the reason we didn't move forward in past years is because we didn't have the ability to do it with our current operating system. So that's the only reason why I didn't move forward. Keep in
Explain
mind,
that to people.
That 300,000 in savings, if that wasn't there in savings, we'd be collecting it in dues. So when we wouldn't be looking at a $22 dues increase. Okay, so it's creating a savings in the budget, which is keeping dues increases down, and we're offering every other form of payment, check, cash, ACH. So there's plenty of ways for the members to avoid paying that fee and still pay their dues at the same time. It creates a savings in the budget, which creates a savings in terms of dues increases. So that's what it's doing. If it doesn't do that, and we're not paying it for, I don't know why are you slapping a label on reserve funding for master plan as paying it for it. It's not that at all. It's the money goes into the reserve fund, which funds capital projects. So worst case scenario, and it's a 1-year proposition because this board next year could say, okay, take your dues increase next year, apply that amount that you added last year to it and reduce the dues increase because we don't need it or we don't want to vote for it. So everything gets approved. We're not binding future boards, budgets, or anything to this. It's a 1-year proposition, and that's all been explained and presented throughout the budgeting process. Certain people are engaging now in the budget process, but we've been talking about this for the last 4 months and presenting it and modeling it and showing it and attaching it to agendas and posting.
I agree.
Okay, Cliff, if I could, Tim, before, just hold on a moment, and then we'll come back to you, I promise. The other piece of this is that this was not presented only at an operations, the GM Ops meeting. Every one of the budget updates that Cliff and his team presented back in April, this was explained in detail in terms of what's proposed on the credit card fees, I should say. The credit card fees that we're talking about would be the credit card fees, this percentage would be charged only in member services, ostensibly for the things that we would do, it's our dues increases, right? That's where we would be given the opportunity to present a check, to pay online by ACH, or if we wanted to use a credit card, there would be an additional fee. So just so you know, this was not hidden, or as hidden as it would appear to you. It has been presented a number of times in Budget and Finance and so forth. And now back to you.
Okay. The meetings, budget and finance meetings are their attendance is very small. Even the people that dial in, which I have been doing, is very small. There's maybe 20, 30 people at the most, okay? So what you're saying at those meetings may reach 100 people, okay? There's 27,000 other people out there that need to know that they're going to be charged. The other thing was, when we were discussing credit card.
Any concerns with continuing, directors? Thank you. I'm sorry, Tim. Go ahead.
The discussion from prior years on credit card fees was that the credit cards, actual credit cards, are charged more than debit cards. So is there some mechanism in here to charge less for a debit card?
There is not. And would you want to go, this was presented back in the budget reviews in April.
Yes, so debit card transactions are not charged. And when the person will know, because it's a disclaimer before they pay. So they will be agreeing to the fact if they're going to use a credit card, there's a processing fee. So they will know. It's not just going to automatically happen without them knowing. So part of the process of doing that, or part of the stipulations around being able to charge a processing fee, is that they have to agree to that before they pay it. So they will know.
Well, I just think you could have done a better job of explaining what was coming up to the people, that the other thousands of people out there who are going to be shocked when they go in and say, what do you mean you're charging me a fee? Up to this point, it's always been considered a cost of doing business. So when you make a change, you need to let people know. Thanks.
Thank you.
This is just a real quick question, just verifying. Paying credit cards at the golf course and the bowling alley, there's no extra fees for that?
Nothing
Just-
proposed at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Am I correct on that? But-
Correct. This would just be for member dues and then also the discount golf cards that are purchased at membership. For those two.
Stephen had a comment he wanted to add as well
Yeah.
before we go to you.
Sorry, Jim.
No worries.
Just to clarify too, until the governing board approves this budget, we don't consider that to be something that we're going to put out because it's not been approved yet. When and if the board approves this budget, which includes the credit card fees, yes, we will be putting out information about that. Up until then, we don't know that that's what's going to be approved or not approved. So it would be, for us to put it out, and if the board would at some point pull it back and put it, that's just gonna be confusing to members. So from an operational standpoint, we rely on folks to engage, and I realize that unfortunately that's not always the case, but to engage in the budget meetings and all that and be aware of that. But until it's approved operationally, it's not a done deal. It's not done until it's done, basically.
Yeah.
Just wanted to add that in there. Thank you.
I think it's fair observations or constructive criticism to say that we don't always do a great job of communicating governing board intentions and even operations intentions to our fellow residents. We're working on it. So I think that's constructive criticism that we will take on board, and assuming we have this approved in the budget going forward, then we will need to make sure that our residents understand where those fees will be charged. So now back to the podium, resident commentary. Mr. Scott.
Yeah, Jim Scott, 404-675. At the end of the day, I agree with all of you. Everyone's got a point that we're all in agreement on. I attended the budget and finance meetings or watched them, and at the end of the day, we're in a pickle. It's a damned if we do and a damned if we don't. We've, correct me if I'm wrong, out of that $42, 22 is done deal. That's for operating. It's really a $20, we're rolling the $20 in, right? And so.
That's the proposal.
Yeah, and then the $300 is a done deal. It's $200 that we're adding on.
It's the other way around. 200 is the done deal.
3. Okay, $300 we're adding on for APF. So I know that we entertain or should say, you folks entertain the idea about shuffling around the golf retrofit schedule because we're on a 2-year schedule. You guys entertained the idea of doing a 3-year. That was an alternative, and decided it wasn't viable. And so we modeled out this idea, and it seemed to garner the most support at the time, right? Now, that was the option, was to slide around the golf retrofit schedule.
Those
Instead-
options are still available, right?
I understand, yeah.
But it was the recommendation of Budget and Finance to choose
Correct.
this option. Thank you.
And so this year, we're dropping down to what in regards to the reserve study, fully funded balance? We drop down after, if we don't do the 20, we're sitting there at around 40, 41, 42, 43.
Yeah.
2031, it goes to 41%.
No, 20, for when we pull out 27, 46? Okay. So there is a few bucks left in there. At the end of the day, we still got the $100,000 for drawings in the budget proposal? Okay. If I
could, just to recap some of the funding, what this does. So the funding is really injecting $6 million into our current model. So into our current model of the budget. Because we have 1.4 million a year that we model in new spend, okay? So you got 1.4 million over 5 years that we already model. You've got reserve funding for areas that you would potentially do some master plan things as well. We called those out. That's approximately 5 million. Okay, and then, so when you add the 5 million, the 6 million, the 1.4 million a year, it's over 15 million that you could potentially have over the next 5 years for some master plan things. Some of it already funded in the reserve fund, some of it already modeled out in the modeling, and then injecting an additional 6 million. So we literally could inject an additional 6 million. We'd only have to cover 4.7 million of it through these increases that were proposed, and we could absorb the rest of it, and we could generate approximately a little over 15 million in that. The beauty of that is we can do that over time at a minimal impact versus having to come for a one-time special assessment for a project. Now, 15 million you might say is a lot of money. Well, it is, but it isn't. I believe Sun City's looking at a new rec center of 30 million for a new, it's replacing one that was so dilapidated they had to knock it down and start over. So this is just simply what we're trying to do, is do this in a way where we could raise it over time, absorb some of the hit in our current reserve fund, keep the 40%, and plan for the future for these items. So that's really what the idea behind it really was. And again, it's not something, the board will vote on it. They're hearing all the feedback from the community. But at the end of the day, it really is just about putting $6 million more in new capital spending over a 5-year period. That's what it is. And we could do that through this proposed budget. And make sure people are paying for it that are moving into the community, who are going to be coming in. Hey, we've got this that we're doing. You should have to pay for that. And then at the same time, spreading it out amongst the members in a way to try and minimize the impact, but still raise those funds. So that was the thought behind it, and the deliberation behind it with the Budget and Finance Committee. They're not here today, a lot of them, but when we had our master plan meetings, there were people in the room and overwhelmingly supported it.
They did.
We hear feedback from both sides. We understand that, it is coming out of people's wallets, and I made the comment earlier on in the year, there's no better way to get people to engage than to start charging them for something.
Well, I was as
Although that
vocal-
was not the reason why this was proposed.
So yes, if we started to charge them for it, I tell you what, people will be a lot more engaged too in the process and wanting to know what they're paying for.
And just to be clear too, like you, I think several of us have said this, I still think this is a good idea, me. I just do not believe, this being master plan funding, right? I believe this is the right thing to do. However, we as a governing board have not done enough to help our residents understand why it's so important. That's where I am. So I still think it's a good idea. I just think that we need to spend more time helping more of our community understand that. And I know it says the big red square is up. Do we have concurrence to finish this commentary? Okay. If you have another, just to wrap it up.
Yeah, so long story short, we're looking at an investment of $379,000 that, is going to, like Chris is saying, that thing's going to shake out some incredible ideas. And then, we're going to sit here and not do anything. It's $20 extra a year. I'm as anti the $20 as anybody will be, but I've always been a strong proponent of saying, and I probably shouldn't say it, but I will anyways, publicly. You got the rec center RCSCW has done an amazing job of maintaining the 80s and 90s. It's time to go to the next level. It's time to bring us up to date. So anyways, all of that to say that in regards to communicating, that's tall mountain. You can go believe me, I know that mountain only all too well. So anyways, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have anything further online?
We do. We have this one comment on this topic and then two on others, which I can circle back to later. This is from Scott Oblander, 139839, and none of these numbers being presented today should be a surprise. These have been discussed for months. Fully support the budget and the rider for the master plan. The facilities have been maintained very well, but some are dated and are in dire need of a refresh.
Thank you for the comment. Any further comments, directors? Director Piaskowski.
On the credit card fee, one, I would like to see that listed on page 27 where it says dues and fees description. We need to put that on there. I think that it says 3% of annual dues if you use a credit card. Because right now it's not listed at all. I mean, just so people, if they're thinking of buying here, because this is what they look at, it's a possibility that they need to know, be aware of, that there's going to be a 3% credit card fee if they use their charge. And then the other thing, have we been able to fix it at the golf courses so I can't go to Stardust and put $1,200 on my membership at Stardust and I won't get charged that 3%? Has that been fixed through IT? Because if it hasn't, that is a loophole.
So that is going to be built into the software, our POS system and our operating software. We have restrictions on what you can add to as well. So you can go up to a certain dollar amount where you can add a virtual gift card on your account with the new portal. So yeah, there are restrictions in place for that.
So that gift card, I believe, is only $250, correct?
We haven't, I mean, we can set
I think that's
it.
what it said in the portal,
Yeah.
$250. So is that annually or is that daily? Because
Per gift card, it's per card.
So will you consider, are you considering options to close the loophole going forward? I think just to put a
Yeah,
finer
I mean,
point.
How we're going to do that will depend on whether they can get it programmed for us properly. But if you charge your member credit online and you use a credit card, you'll be charged a processing fee for that.
But that's online. I'm
It's
talking
online.
about physically walking into a golf course saying, I would like to put $1,000 on my member credit, because right now you can do that.
Right. So there are other options we're looking at. One of those could be that you cannot charge member credit at the golf course. We don't want to have to do that, but that's one measure we could take to close that loophole. We're working on some software things right now that could allow us to do that. We'll have to see but we will close that loophole.
So this
So
is,
you are going to close that particular loophole that you've been talking about? Sorry to interrupt you.
okay, because,
Director Piaskowski.
you know, a lot of people charge guest fees at the pools, and that will not be charged, right? There will not be a 3% charge at the pools, correct? It's only our member dues.
In the membership office,
For member dues
For member
and the
dues.
discount golf cards.
correct.
Right, so,
Okay, thanks.
thank you. Sir, we know who you are, but why don't you introduce yourselves to those who may
Dennis
not know you?
Hansel, 111074. I'd like the board to consider the impact of the increase in the asset preservation fees. Because when it gets to such a point, although they're paid for by the purchaser of a residence, it's now becoming a negotiating tool between the residents who own the property that's being sold and the prospective buyer. In effect, when you increase the asset preservation fee to the extent you want to, you're assessing the owner-seller an additional fee in the thousands. I want you to consider that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Hansel. Another good point, but remember too, it's totally non-scientific what I'm about to say. I did go out, and I believe a couple of my fellow directors did as well. We just talked to a few realtors, non-scientific, and asked about this question. So we are considering it and concerned. They did not indicate that this is a concern, but we recognize that it could become one. So we're keeping an eye on it. and thank you for the comment.
If I may comment, I did hear from a realtor who said this is now part of the negotiations. And he also commented to me that an individual, a prospective buyer, went to Pebble Creek just because of the asset preservation fee.
The Pebble Creek's fees are going to go up dramatically when they're no longer developer focused, and I believe they're paying about the same fee, maybe a little less because it's a one-time buy-in.
They pay their fee is 1 year's worth of dues, but they still are with the builder. So the builder is actually probably subsidizing a lot of those right now. But keep in mind, 1979, we were built. All these amenities, 53 buildings, 4 golf courses, library, theater, bowling alley. These places are aging. We're 59% used up when you look at our reserve study. 59% used up on $120 million worth of assets. If we don't charge asset preservation fees, the money's got to come from somewhere. It'll come from dues and fees. Okay? People should have to buy into this community. We don't want to raise it to a point where it's unreasonable. Okay, we definitely don't want to do that. But we're facing things that people like organizations like Pebble Creek and Sun City Festival and Verado and Portobello are not facing. So we have to make sure we stay diligent, reasonable on these things, and that's what we're trying to do. That really is what we're trying to do. And if we're going to build new things, then new people should have to pay for them.
And we are considering it. To your recommendation, we're considering it today especially, but every year we look at that number and how it goes up and how we compete with others. So thank you for the comment. And again, if I may note for the minutes before we call this question to a vote, if we could please ensure both Sandra, our secretary, and for our governing board executive assistant, let's note in the minutes that as a part of this recommendation and the budget proposal before us, the assumptions page would be noted to make the 10th assumption, which would note that the extra funds raised are going to accrue to the reserve fund. That's the intention. I believe that was the one big option. So if we can put that in the minutes so that we have that on record. Without any further comments or questions, I'd like to ask Director Becknell to reread the motion so we can put it to a vote.
President Novello, we just had one more comment come in online on this subject.
And then we will call the question. Please go ahead.
And this is from 133113, Mary Gannett, I believe, Mary G. I think you're getting way ahead of yourself. This is a longer range plan, and no matter how you update certain things here, these homes are still 30 years old, so we will never compete with the new developments in that way. Whatever you end up doing, we will need to see detailed financial line items for each of the projects that comes from the master plan. We have to be able to see that the funds held for these projects is actually used for those specific projects and not put in another fund.
Thank you for the comment, and thanks for reading it back. Director Piaskowski noted that there's someone in the audience with a hand raised. Is that? Would you please come to the podium?
My name is Don Heeman, rec number 110853. I just spent the last 8-9 months on the Budget and Finance Committee. The proposed change of $22 is only like about a 3.7 or 3.5% increase in dues. 3.7. The other money that is proposed is strictly only for what we anticipate is going to be coming out of the master plan. Now, this other man earlier indicated that this is, you know, on their 40th anniversary, you want to plan a trip, you don't know where. Well, we don't know what's going to come out of the master plan. And the board's going to be considering what's going to come out and what they're going to agree to do. But if you don't start sometime saving, it's going to cost you more money longer. And that's why we chose the least painful way of increasing our dues, which was $28 1 year, hopefully for 5 years, but it owes up to the board every single year. Now, if you want to go and not do anything on the master plan, fine, then the dues will go down next year. But then if you don't want to do anything on the master plan, why the hell are we even doing it? That's my question. So if you want to really do something on the master plan, you better start saving for it sometime soon. Otherwise, it's going to cost you a lot more.
Thank you for your comments. Is there any other discussion, directors or residents? So Director Becknell, if you would please reread your motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I move that the governing board approve the RCSTW fiscal year 2026-27 annual financial plan budget as proposed, which includes a $42 increase in annual dues to $640 and a $500 increase to the asset preservation fee to $5,900.
Thank you. With that, I'm going to do a roll call vote. We will start with you, Director Grom.
No.
Director Piaskowski.
No.
Director Chatton.
No.
Director Becknell.
Yes.
Director Schlemmer.
No.
Director Turner.
No.
Director Forsey.
Yes.
There are 2 yeas. Therefore, this motion is defeated. Before we move on, I want to thank the Budget and Finance Committee and Treasurer Becknell for 9 months of analysis and hard work. None of that went to waste. We greatly appreciate your time. But nonetheless, we are obligated by our bylaws to come to consensus and approve a financial plan. So as I mentioned earlier, we have been discussing, because we anticipated that we would not be able to garner 6 votes to approve. So we do have a revision, a revised fiscal year 26-27 annual financial plan or budget to consider. Our CFO took the time to rerun all of the numbers so that we could actually consider this and have some specifics rather than just creating this on the fly. So the board's been introduced to the revised budget as an alternative to what we just discussed at length, based on feedback and also based on our own discussions over the past 4 or 5 governing board meetings. So with that, I'm going to turn to Director Chatton to introduce a motion for a revised budget.
Thank you, President Novello. I move that the governing board approve the RCSCW fiscal year 2026-27 annual financial plan, their budget, as revised, which includes a $20 increase to $618 annually in annual dues and a $350 increase in the asset preservation fee to $5,750.
Do I have a second? Director Schlemmer seconds. So Director Chatton or Schlemmer or any director, do you want to go through their, same as before, by the way, in terms of page numbers. Page 3 is where we start talking about the key assumptions. And then pages 11, 12, 13 include the salary policy, which is unchanged. The benefit policy on page 13 is unchanged. We can look at page 26 to see the long-range impact of some of these proposals. I do want to call our attention, though, on page 3. some of the changes there. There's a change in the number of golf rounds. Because we do need to recognize that we are budgeting revenue that we may not be able to obtain. We also recognize that one of the changes that was proposed here has to do with how many new staff people we would potentially add next year. So under number 7, the change, this assumption, number 7 specifies that the FTE increases are in recreation and sports pavilion. Those are increases that directly impact the services that we as residents receive. With that, Director Chatton, anything that you wanted to note in here for us?
How much time do we have? I think it's been apparent in the past that I was opposed to the original budget as presented. And I give kudos to the Budget and Finance Committee because they worked extremely hard to come up with this. But I still maintain that as directors, we still have the right to question anything in that budget at any time. We don't have to do it at the beginning of that budget. We can look at the totality of that budget later on and make some suggestions as to changes that we would like to see. I was definitely against putting money aside with an extra $20 dues increase for the master plan. I am in favor of the master plan. Hopefully it provides a whole lot of vision for our future. But I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse. This board is going to have to make a lot of decisions setting priorities based on our current needs and what the master plan may suggest we do in the future. I think that's pretty hard to do without talking about what we actually will do out of the master plan. Just because the master plan suggests something doesn't mean we are going to do it. That is going to be a board decision. However, I do believe that to put some money aside for that, instead of a $200 increase in the APF, we went to a $350 increase. So that does provide additional monies towards a potential master plan, and it gives us next budget year, when we've actually seen the master plan, to set some priorities and to bake them into the budget for that year. So I agree, this revised budget isn't exactly what I'd like to see. I'd lower the dues another $3, but I think the 618 is a good compromise, and raising the APF more than the $200 I think is also a good compromise to potentially fund some dollars for the master plan. So with that, I will let it go.
Thanks, Director Chatton. Director Schlemmer, is that a finger? I couldn't.
That is a finger. I was waiting for you to finish if you had a comment. I am similar to Director Chatton. You know, I think in an ideal world, I would like to see more for that master plan, but we also hear the community and we hear the concerns, and so I accept those concerns. But the other piece to the budget process that did concern me is now that we're looking solely at 20 or 22 or whatever the number is in terms of the operating budget, as I looked out over the horizon of 5 years, and these scenarios are in the board, in the packet that comes with this budget. 5 years out, we're looking at, with no other change, we're looking at a reserve balance at 41%. Fully funded balance. And I can't remember a time in my 10 years living in this community where we were talking that low. One of the things that brought many of us here, and myself included, is the fact that Sun City West, unlike many of our peer communities, is so financially solid. You only need to go a little ways down the road to see a community that isn't. And I really get nervous when I see us getting down to, you know, it used to be we were talking, 50% is the right number. Now, some people can argue, oh, it's too much and not too much, but the fact of the matter remains, it makes us financially sound and prepared for the future. Should anything hit this community, hopefully we have the financial stability to survive it. 48 years old facilities do have some risks. So I don't want to worry about master plan. I just look at this and I say the extra money, and I advocated for a little extra money on that APF, because at least what it does is it changes that projection 5 years out and adds another layer of percentage to take it up to 42. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but folks, we're in a time of uncertainty. You only need to look at what's going on in Iran, and I'm not going to talk politics here at all. I don't care what side of the aisle you sit on, doesn't really matter. Reality is fact. We have a war in Iran that we're in. We have China bantering about wanting to take over Taiwan. We have oil prices going through the roof right now. You only need to go to Fry's and look at it. And I did not want this community to run the risk that its reserve balance drops down because of some adversity in the economy, where we're now suddenly sitting here as a board going, oh, what are we going to do? It's going to hit 38 or 39%. I wanted a little extra cushion. Adding that extra 150 to make the APF increase from 200 to 350, I think does what Director Chatton said. It might give us a little money towards master plan if all things go exactly as we project. But if all things don't, it at least gives us a little extra layer of cushion to stay above that 40% mark, get through these Gulf improvements, and then start rebuilding that balance towards a higher level, which is what we need to be doing. Our primary role as governing board members is the financial stability and safety of this community. So for that reason, I support this budget. I would have loved to have seen some more money. I applaud the Budget and Finance Committee for what they did. I think it was brave. I think it was thought-provoking. At the end of the day, when you compromise, you walk away shaking your head. I'm going to walk away shaking my head on this one, as I think you will too.
In the sage words of Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, you can't always get what you want, but if you try, sometimes you'll get what you need. And all joking aside, those are actually sage words that apply here, right? When you come to a compromised position, you don't get what you want, but the most important thing for us as fiduciaries is to ensure that this beautiful community and the services and the amenities we offer is able to be maintained in the way and the standard that we have come to expect. This operating budget increase, while I support and supported the original operating budget increase of $22, this is certainly something that we are told by operations, while it will be tight, we can continue to support the services and the amenities that we currently offer within an operating budget. And as Directors Chatton and Schlemmer noted, if you look at page 26 in the revised packet, that percentage FFB balance does remain, it goes up an extra percent, which is a slight bit of comfort. It should also help illustrate to the board and to residents how difficult it is to move the needle on that. Once you eat up your reserves and your fully funded balance, it is a very slow recovery period. So I think this is a very pragmatic approach. And again, as a fiduciary and as a board member, it does seem to make sense to me as well, even if, and while, gosh, I sure hope that the governing board will continue to move forward and implement all the things that we've been under discussion with, that they will have the ability to do so and to react quickly. However, even without another dollar of capital spend beyond what's projected in the current plan, this is a very conservative approach and leaves us very close to that 40% number. So I think, again, it's a good call to increase the asset preservation fee. Any other discussion, directors? I know, oh, yes, and Director Grom, we did say we were going to come back to you from the earlier point, so please.
No, this is the page is showing page 3. Why did we reduce the number of budgeted golf rounds by 2,500? I would think That's not relevant to what we're really doing here. Why did that happen?
Rounds right now behind budget, and I didn't want to go in. Last year we did 314,000 rounds. This year, if we hold the line, we'll do approximately 317,000 rounds. Just didn't make sense to go into a budget year with 320,000 rounds. This has all been presented at golf committee.
No, I don't recall ever seeing 317, 500 rounds. It was always 320.
I meant the fall in the golf rounds this year.
Yeah, I understand that. but,
Okay.
I mean, the proposed budget had 320,000 and now you've dropped it by 2,500. What prompted that drop?
It
The
was.
reduction in rounds this year.
Yeah, and when we were working through the construct of a compromise, if I can just be really transparent, this is what was necessary. The reduction in revenue was necessary in order to hit some of the requested numbers to reduce our reserve fund allocation and so forth. So it would require us to reduce what we would anticipate for revenue in order to make this proposed compromise come together, just to be really transparent. So we needed to acknowledge that we would be reducing our revenue. And the way that we chose to do that is by acknowledging a likely reduction or projection in the number of golf rounds and revenue that would be associated. And I felt, Director Grom, that it was prudent to go forward and do that because it's not as if we would be increasing the revenue expectations of golf, but rather making it a little bit easier to attain. So that's where it came from, just to be fully transparent and honest. Right? I was aware that we would, in order to achieve the compromise, when you're doing these compromises in a room, sometimes there are unintended consequences. So we realized it was a small revenue miss when we were creating the package, and I told Cliff to go ahead and to proceed forward with that. If it's something we cannot accept, we can discuss it here. I understand that, again, I'm just being, and did I state that correctly, Cliff?
Yeah, absolutely. But the fact of the matter is, budgeting 320,000 rounds in golf when you haven't hit that number for the past 2 years, and we didn't know until we got through March. We were 2,000 rounds ahead through February. So we didn't know until we got to March and through April that the rounds were taking the hit that they were. And so therefore we wanted to adjust those rounds.
By adjusting this number down, we're decreasing our revenue, correct?
We're decreasing that projection of revenue, yes.
Why would we want to do that?
It's
350,000 rounds if you want more revenue. I mean,
we wanted to reflect the reality and have this budget reflect our best assumptions, just to, and again, it also, when we were balancing everything out, we knew that we needed to make that reflection somewhere. This was the most glaring opportunity to do so. We hope to beat it. That would always be the expectation, right? But since we haven't hit that number yet, it seemed like a prudent recommendation. Director Piaskowski?
We have 1,100 homes. What are we at right now for this year? Just kind of curious. I know we were down and March was like a booming
yeah,
month.
so April and March were good. April was better. We're right on budget, which we budget 1,100 this year. We're 7 home sales over budget through April. So if we hit our budget for the next 2 months, we'll have 1,107.
Okay, and we've hit that 1,100 for the last couple of years, haven't we?
Last year, I believe it was 1,119.
Right, okay.
And the year before was 1,140.
Thank you. One more thing. You know, when John read the motion, I don't know if we had a second.
It was Director Schlimmer.
Oh, okay.
But thank you.
Didn't see it, sorry.
That's okay. Director Turner?
Yeah, you stated that the general manager has said that with the fees at 618 rather than at 720, that if they sharpen the pencil, they can keep the operations at the current level. But are we going to not get something extra that we would have got under the original budget? Is there anything that you planned to do that is now no longer going to happen?
Yeah, so Director Turner, we will not be able to do the position, which was the additional position in the public relations area. So that is concerning to me. You know, we heard comments today about how not getting out enough information and things like that. This is exactly why we were proposing that position. There's been a lot more interest in engagement and the ways that we communicate with the members and producing more, sending out more emails. Anytime there's, send an email for this, an email for that, send, post this, change that, get all the information out, which I'm fully in favor of. I absolutely want to make sure that we are providing as much information to the members as possible. But that is my concern. We're not going to be able to fund that position, which is, we are struggling right now. We have a staff member that is out for an extended time, and that is seriously impacting our ability to do things like the Rec Center News. And so we are running very, very thin in that area because of the demands that the board through the strategic plan have put on us, and I put on the staff as well, because I believe that we should be doing a lot more to get information out. So it is going to impact that, and it's going to make it challenging for us. We will work through it, but we're not going to be able to do some of the things that we would have liked to have done to continue to engage the community the way that we would like to do.
And Stephen, should that continue, should that problem grow and amount, I hope that you will come back to the governing board and let the governing board know and react. As one of our residents remarked, there are options available to the governing board even outside of today's decision. But please do return to the governing board and keep us informed as that continues. So if there are ways for us to help, we'll do so. And that's the royal we. The governing board will do so. Other discussion points? Yes, Director Pieskoski.
Okay, so I just want to make, we have this master plan coming, which is great. Not one of us on this board right now can tell us what the master plan is going to bring us. We will never be a Pebble Creek of Estancia. That's just not our look, folks. We were made in 1979. Can we update some of our things? We certainly can. We have $100,000 in our budget right now for that planning. That we can, once we get that plan, and once we decide what we want to do, we have money to see what the monies are going to cost us to do what we want to do. So I want everyone to know that we have money. Once we get the plan, and once we decide what we want to do, we do have money in this budget to figure out which direction we want to go. I think it's really important that we wait for the master plan to see before we start funding. And I'm hoping that the master plan doesn't come and say, oh, we're going to rip this building down or do that because that's what we want to look. That's not what we want to do. I'm hoping the master plan will tell us what our next generation will be like, what type of impact they will have on our clubs, what impact they will have on our golf rounds, our bowling rounds, or lanes, is that what that's called? So that's what I'm hoping, lineage. I'm hoping that the master plan comes back with details so we know what we have to do in the next 5 to 10 years to bring in the new coming residents, like my 50-year-old son-in-law.
Well, and again, to build off that, Director Pieskoski, the master plan won't provide those answers, but it will provide data. Won't provide the answers of rip down this building or do this or do that. That's for the governing board, together with employees and staff to help, figure out how much some of these issues would cost, matters would cost. But the governing board will decide what the priorities are and where to begin based on the information that you had described that you're hoping to see. You're right, we don't know that information yet. The other thing that I alluded to, and again, Cliff can back me up if I'm incorrect, but if you look forward in the details of the budget, our reserve study does project some additional investment in areas that could very well be part of the governing board's master plan priorities. One of our frequent examples is the Kuntz tennis courts have fallen into disrepair, and a few years ago, while I was on the governing board, so this would have been probably fall of 2023, we decided to just hold off and wait until we had a better idea of what those courts would be used for. At the time, we had, there were some different debates about what they would be used for. So it did come off of the following year's spending, and it remains still just a future item, but that forecast is there. That's one of many examples of projects that, should the governing board decide what to do with that facility and how to invest, there are some future funds that have already been forecasted. So those are there too. The governing board's hands are not completely tied. As I've said many times, I'm a fan of starting to save the money now, but I can appreciate that we need to do better in terms of educating our staff. I accept the governing board's decision that we just made a few moments ago, and just remind us all, residents as well as board and incoming board members, that there will be some funds available in order to proceed with the initial implementations, and then how the governing board decides to proceed forward with the rest of the priorities is a decision that it will make next year. Yes, Director Becknell.
Projects. The Kuntz tennis courts is on there for a little over $1 million, like $1,100,000 something. Does that number automatically increase year over year as we know the price for making those kinds of repairs? Because in my research looking back, I think it was 2018 when this topic first came up. And so now it's been 7-8 years, right? And we've done nothing. But has that number continued to increase 2-3% year over year, or has it just stayed flat?
Yeah, it does increase by inflation. So the number that's projected is inflation's baked into that number. So the good news is the number we're looking at now is inflated. And the other good news is, I believe that's on the docket for 2031. If we decided to move forward before 2031, we would have funds available. It wouldn't be at that amount because we wouldn't be raising funds for those next few years, but we would, for example, it's probably, the current cost of that probably is on the books for around $900,000 right now. So we do have $900,000 in the reserve fund right now. If we decided to move forward with that project next year or 2 years down the road, it'd be a little bit more. So now I will say it's funded or fully funded at 48%. When you look at the grand scheme of all the assets, but we do have the funds available because everything doesn't come at once.
Also, to clarify, if the master plan comes out and indicates that there's an overwhelming desire to buy Hillcrest and turn it into Central Park Sun City West, and let's say that's a $20-30 million purchase, that would require us to get a loan. And that would require us, because it's more than a 3-year investment, that we wouldn't be able to make a decision like that to spend that money without taking it to a community vote.
That's correct.
There's some good news. You could pay for that loan with reserve funds. You'd expense the interest. But because it is an agreement beyond 3 years, and it doesn't fall in line with any of the 5-year agreements the board is allowed to sign, but because it's beyond the signing authority of the board, that would have to go to a community vote if we were to enter into some sort of loan for a project like that.
The same thing would be true if, for some reason, we decided to convert the tennis court, the Kuntz tennis courts, into a building, make it a social hall and do a whole construction project. And again, that might cost $20-30 million. The same thing would apply. So unless we do repair, replace, and maybe minor modifications, anything else would be required to go out as a vote to the community for us to spend that kind of money.
Well, unless, I'm sorry to interrupt, but unless by our bylaws, unless it's something that is available in the reserves, if we had $20 million of cash, we could do that, right? But of course, I'm being a little facetious, right? But anything of that nature that's over a certain percentage would have to go to vote. Entering into a loan of the nature you're describing and performing a special assessment as well. All of those things over certain percentages, any special assessment would go to a vote. But you're right about the expenditures, right? So those are all, although Cliff is certainly an expert as well, we can answer for ourselves on the bylaws part, so. thanks.
And just as a final comment, speaking as the director for the Budget and Finance Committee, who worked very hard this past year on this budget and made Cliff go through many, many revisions, including moving the golf courses out by 3 years, and we saw what the effect of that was, that it cost millions of dollars more to delay those projects, not to mention the cost savings that we lose earlier than later by having the proper irrigation systems in place. By not having these additional funds that we requested means that we are kicking the can down the road. So any of these projects that come out of the master plan will inevitably cost us 3 to 5 to 7% more over the long run. So that's just, that's part of the logic and part of the reason that we discussed in our meetings, that we knew that there were a number of things that we would like to see done. We have looked at the comments and the information that was collected during the master plan and done our own back of the envelope kind of calculations for things. And we don't think that that budget was that far out of line, but by making this choice, we are putting those things off by at least a year or 3, which means that's going to just raise the price of all of them. So that's just, speaking as the Budget and Finance Committee, those are some of the things that we talked about, the things we analyzed, and that's why we decided to do the way we did.
Thank you for that, Director Becknell. Very difficult decisions. And residents, you too could serve on the governing board and be a part of making some of these, but truly something that, all joking aside, it's the kind of thing that I've been known to, you can ask my husband if you see him sometime. I've been known to wake up in the middle of the night and walk around the house thinking about it. Director Schlemmer?
Thank you, President Novella. This is a little, maybe even a little off topic, but Director Piaskowski just mentioned that we're not going to be Pebble Creek or some other community. One of the things I really have admired about Director Piaskowski is that she's a great cheerleader for the activities and events and things going on around Sun City West. And so her comments surprised me a little bit. We may not be as new. We may not be brand new model homes. But I'm on this governing board because I absolutely believe that this is the very best retirement community in the country. I will put this community up against anybody, anywhere, any day, anytime. And that includes the Grand and Pebble Creek and Portobello with their pretty gates. That's all they have. I don't want to hear us as a governing board saying that we can't be that. That shouldn't be the way we think. We did a tour of all these communities. We walked away and came back and said, man, they got nothing on us. Yeah, our rec center is 1970. This was opened in 1980. I get it. But that doesn't make it not as good, not as great. In fact, I don't want to be in Pebble Creek or Portobello or the Grand. Thank you.
Make it. Alan, that was not my intent. My intent was to let you know that we will never be new again, right? But we will have to keep our facilities up, and we do a wonderful job at that. That's not what I'm not saying. We do a great job. It's just that if you're looking for the look of that, if you're looking for the bigger buildings with the atrium windows in it, we won't have that type of look because our bones of our buildings don't allow us to do that unless we want to spend millions. And we are a community that is for the, I know you guys are gonna, but we are a middle class. We don't want to lose what we have here. We have a community here that people come because they can afford it. We have a community here that people want to be here because we have the clubs. No other facilities that we've visited have 92 clubs, okay? I mean, if people are bored here, it is not the rec center's problem, it is the member problem. So that's all I'm saying, is that we can not have the look. If that's what we're looking to do, it's gonna be a little bit harder to do that look, because our buildings have arches. You know what? Let's wait 15 more years and the Spanish look will be back in style.
Well,
yeah, and headbands.
Great, and again, this is the kind of commentary and analysis that we can expect from the governing board as you consider the alternatives, but we're all here because we believe so strongly in the future of this community, excuse me, and I do share the view that this is the best, and I share the hope that the governing board will continue to invest to keep us the best over a long period of time. Any other comments? And again, we don't need to settle the question of what the future is going to look like, because today we're here to discuss a budget, a financial plan for fiscal year 2027. So, but some money is there, as we've described. I think there's an impact to deferring the money and the funding. But we've already made that decision. Any other discussion from the directors before we open it up to residents? So let's open it up for resident comments. Is there anything online, Director Turner, yet? Anything in the room?
Not on this topic.
Okay. And we'll, for those of you, if we've missed it, we will come back and get those comments at the end. So we do have Mr. Hansel returning to the microphone for further comment.
As indicated earlier by a board member, the board's primary responsibility is the financial condition of this association. As a resident, I am asking why the board has not done more to determine whether the wage and benefits schedule enacted by the general manager is on point. I want to recognize board member Rudy Grom, who has raised issues with management and the board. It is not easy to go against the grain, I know. Mr. Grom, you have stood your ground with reasoned analysis, and for that I applaud you. Thank you.
Thanks for the comments. And again, we've responded in the past. The board is going to ensure that the compensation study that was performed this year was performed accurately and in alignment with our expectations. But thanks for the comments. We have another resident coming forward. That's quite all right. That's why we're here.
Again, Jim McLeod. Just kind of a follow-up on the conversation about the rounds of golf. Are the rounds of golf categorized by public, members? Do you know how many rounds of golf the public played last year and current year to date?
So, the deficit in the rounds are from our non-member golf this year. So when you're talking about year over year, it's about 57,000 rounds last year was played by non-members.
No, I know, but guests are in there also. I mean,
Say
just public.
Well, just
Yeah.
it's about 25, 24, 25,000, 28,000 rounds by public.
Okay.
Yeah.
The fact that the members, guests, and the public pay the same amount on green fees. I personally think the public, if they're not guests, could pay a little more. If it was $10 more, that would be quite a bit of money.
We do have the golf committee did take that up, and in this budget, there is a $5 difference between the member guest and the public on the golf rates during peak season.
May I ask why only $5?
If you can go back to the golf committee meetings and watch them, I think you'll be really informed on our golf rates and why they are what they are. You also have to remember that our golf rates don't include a cart, so you have to add $16 to that. We are competing for golfers that live in retirement communities around us that already play cheap golf. If we make our golf too expensive, they won't come here, and they won't come here as often. So we have to be very conscious of who we're going after for golfers. We're not going after people from North Phoenix and, you know, East Phoenix. You have to pass, I don't know, probably 30 golf courses before you get to Sun City West if you're going to come here to play. So,
but these courses are much better.
Yes, agreed. Which is why we charge more than Hillcrest and why we charge more than Sun City. But I encourage you to go back and look at those meetings. Lots of time and energy discussing golf rates, surrounding golf courses, and what our rates are, and a lot of comparables. There's a lot of information there. Things I can't really get into right now just because it would take too long. But if you can go back and listen to those meetings, I think you'd be really informed.
Okay, I still want to go on record that if I have my brother-in-law come in and play and 2 teenagers come in from Surprise, they pay the same amount. And to me, I'm a member. It should
But
be
not
better.
yet. You're absolutely right, but not next year. Next year, there will be a difference.
Well, only $5.
It's a start, right?
It's a
And,
start. Also, just the sheer fact that this last late winter with record heat, a lot of people didn't go golf. I think that's why the numbers are off. The numbers are probably going to go way up because we're having a mild spring and summer. We hope.
And golf rounds were up by 2,000 through February.
Right. We had a great winter.
Yeah, no, it was very good. November was a little tough because we had rain. Again, if you go back to those golf committee meetings, all there are engaging them moving forward. You'll get really.
Are they open to the public? I'm not aware of these.
What's that?
Absolutely.
The golf courses?
No, the
Golf committee is
the
open
golf-
to the
Oh,
public.
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And when and where do they meet? Where can I find that
Here,
information?
that information's on our hub.
It's on the website. It's in the Rec Center News, right, as well, like all of the dates and times. Generally speaking, this year, they've been held, I'm going to look to Director Grom, first Thursday or second Thursday of the month, 1:30 PM here. But please look for that. And again, if you're not online, you can look in the newspaper, so forth. But social media, website, and newspaper all give the monthly schedule for those. So please, I hope you'll join. I believe, Director Grom, remind me, have you already canceled the rest of the year's meetings in anticipation? So the next meetings will be in the fall, but please keep an eye out for those.
Okay.
Package that we post on the website, there's a golf report. There's all you can eat in there. If you want to go take a look at that.
Okay.
On data.
I have a few seconds left. I'm going to relate it to the golf courses as far as revenue. They close at 5:30. And they're a perfect little pub for neighborhoods where people can walk over, sit down, watch sports, listen to music, have a beer, have a glass of wine. And if they're kept open later, you could multi-use these facilities that we already have that are closed starting at 5:30. And seriously, from 3 on, nobody goes in there. If we advertise it as a neighborhood pub, that would be great for the community. Thank you.
Thanks for that. I think, thank you for your comments. The master plan findings had noted that some of our residents had indicated that would be, you're not the only resident who came up with that. So keep an eye out on that. Those could be the kinds of decisions the governing board will be considering next year. Thank you.
Jim Scott, 404-675. I just had a idea that came on in regards to the communications. That billboard is a missed opportunity to R&R that thing with something that's a little more latest and greatest. That one, and even the Stardust one, you can barely even read that one. But those are opportunities people are driving by that we could be communicating golf meeting or whatever meeting, or the hub or whatever. It's just a communication outlet that we're really missing out on.
Absolutely. It's a question that the board asked, I think it was March, when we were asking Stephen and Cliff questions about project items and so forth. It was something that we asked about then, and we were looking at each other smiling because it's something that we've all been asking each other. What would it take to change that? It's not a small change the entire sign needs to be replaced, which is why, again, that's something that could be done next year once the governing board reconvenes and considers the priority of that. But so we were smiling at each other, not because we agree with you. Let's put it that way. Any further update you wanted to make? Any other comments online, Director Turner?
Yes, we have a few. First one, Bruce Lee's, again, 135422. I support a one-time $100 special assessment for the strategic plan by 2728. Collect the money once and deposit in high-yield certificates. It will earn a lot. Then we have a comment from 133113, Mary G. I'm okay with the $20 rec fee, but not the APF increase to $350. I'd suggest $250 max. With the over $1 million from last year, plus $300,000 savings on credit card fees and $100,000 allocated for planning, that should be sufficient for some time. If you're proposing some building for $12 million or whatever, that should require a vote from the community. Maybe we also need to look more at cost savings and reduce staffing in upper management. We seem to be top-heavy compared to like communities, and some positions could be eliminated and job functions adjusted. And there's some other comments as well, but they're on different topic.
Okay, so in terms of the comment, a special assessment is one of the items that the governing board could consider to close any gap in funding in the future for additional investments that are not possible with our current reserves. Thanks for the commentary on other ways to consider either saving money or adjusting money. We appreciate your input. We're considering the motion that's on the floor. And all of the long-term impacts are shown on page 26 of the attached packet that is attached. I believe it's called revised. So there are two funding packets attached. Any other discussion points before we call this to a vote? Directors? Attendees? Well then, Director Chatton, would you please reread the motion?
Yes, I move that the governing board approve the RCSCW fiscal year 2026-27 annual financial plan, their budget, as revised, which includes a $20 increase to $618 annually in annual dues and a $350 increase in the asset preservation fee to $5,750.
Thank you for rereading the motion. So we'll start, this time we'll start with you, Director Turner.
Yes.
Director Schlemmer.
Yes.
Becknell.
Yes.
Chatton.
Yes.
Director Piaskowski.
No, and primarily not because of the budget, but because of the salary comparison study that they did.
So we will,
Because
so no
that's
commentary.
attached,
The
yeah.
commentary time was before. Thank you. It's a no. I appreciate that. Director Grom.
No.
Director Forsey.
Yes.
And I will also vote yes, which brings us to 6 votes in the affirmative, so the motion carries. Thank you, directors, and really appreciate that. I know that we're now at the 2-hour mark. We have a few more items on the agenda. Shall we take a 5-minute break for restroom or continue on? Continue on as all right, we're powering through. So at item number 4.03, we have a policy change to consider. We've discussed this in the past. This relates to our changed election schedule. So, and those election schedules were changed as a part of the bylaws. So, Director Schlemmer, could you please read the motion?
Thank you, President Novello. Per the Governing Board Election Special Committee recommendation, I move that the Governing Board approve in gross language revisions to Committee Policy C02, Annual Election of Directors at Section 3.0 as redlined.
Do I have a second? Oh, thank you, Director Becknell. Directors, this proposed policy revision was attached. We discussed it very broadly in the past. Do you have any questions or discussion points on the policy? Director Grom?
Yes, thank you, President Novello. Could you go down the page a little bit? 3.2. The election day is the last Monday in March. I see that as a conflict with what's in our bylaws, which specify each year the specific date of the election shall be designated by the governing board at its regular October governing board meeting. If we're putting it into policy that that is the date, that takes away the authority of next year's board to set the date.
This sets forth a schedule for conducting the election by the end of March. The governing board will identify the specific date, is I believe the intention is, Kathy Estes, you're the, could you, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but Kathy Estes was the chairperson of the Elections Committee, so they put forward the draft. Thanks for coming forward to answer Director Grom in detail.
Okay. It is policy. The governing board sets the policy, and they could always change this if they want to. I think it's good to have a specific date set out so we know exactly when the election ends. And you want it in March before a lot of our people leave. It has to be on a Monday because that's when the Data Resource Center is closed, and that's the facility that we use.
I understand the concern that you're putting forward, Director Grom. Do you still believe that this removes the authority of the governing board?
Well, you have a bylaw that specifically has words in it. Why are we using different words in 3.2? Why don't we just repeat the bylaw? Because bylaws, we don't control. The policy, the board controls. Whereas if it says exactly what's in the bylaws, there is no question. That date will be set each year at the October meeting. Now, maybe it will be the last Monday in March. Maybe that's what it'll be. But in this case, this policy is taking away, in a sense, the authority of next year's board to set the date.
Understand the concern. I believe one of the other concerns that you and other directors and residents raised is that the contracted schedule would not give enough time to our residents to consider the candidacy and so forth. So I believe part of this was to answer those earlier concerns about making sure that we had at least the entire month of March. That said, if we have two options, in the past, when we've tried to make changes to policy on the fly, we've changed the intention of that policy and the implementation has suffered. We see a few of those coming up today, or one more coming up today. If it's something that's, if we fail, if this motion fails today, we will return this policy to our workshop in June. So I don't propose that we make any changes on the fly. And I'm just looking for a quick consensus to call this to vote. And again, if it fails in the vote, we just bring it to workshop to settle that.
Okay, I have one other concern then. 3.3, all other election process dates are established by the election committee. Now, we specifically have the understanding here that our committees are advisory only, and that's pretty much laid out in 6.1.1. Committees have no direct decision-making authorities. And isn't that exactly what you're saying they can now do? They have the authority to set the dates. To me, that's making a decision. Our committees don't make decisions, they make a recommendation back to the board. So I think that, in a sense, violates our bylaws.
It looks like we're taking this to the workshop. Governing board directors, would you concur? I'm not comfortable that we're violating, I don't believe we're violating any bylaws, but I'm not willing to just blow by that. Do we have consensus to move this to workshop? So, Director Grom, what would satisfy you that this would meet what kind of analysis would you need to do, and how quickly can you turn that around so that we can make an educated decision on this rather than on the fly in the workshop?
Well, pretty simple. 3.2 just needs to repeat what's in the bylaws. And 3.3 simply says the election committee will make recommendation for the dates. That's all.
Okay.
And then the board.
So why don't we we'll make those red lines and we'll review this in our June workshop and vote on it at our regular meeting on June the 18th.
Thank you.
Fair enough?
Kathy,
Yes.
when you guys set those dates, you'll come and present those to the board, right?
Absolutely.
And what,
Yeah.
by October or November?
Probably
By-
October, yes.
I would think it'd have to be by
Yeah,
November.
because there's a whole
or October.
schedule of dates.
Right.
You know.
Okay, just making sure.
And those all have to be actually booked out probably this summer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, I think the Director Grom's concern is the choice of the word set, which implies a decision, correct? So we'll review some of that, and thank you again for all your hard work. Any other comments or questions from the directors? We'll put this on the workshop. We do have a resident, Mr. Tim Hurley is at the microphone, and if there are other comments online, we'll read those too.
No matter what the policy says, your bylaws take precedence over the policies.
Always.
So you can put whatever you want in the policy, but the bylaw oversees it.
That's right.
I would think that would be obvious.
Thank you. We are aware of that, Mr. Hurley, but Director Grom wants to see this change made, so we will take it to workshop so that he's satisfied. Any other comments online on this topic?
Not on this topic.
So we'll push this to our workshop. We'll move on to item 4.04. In this case, we had a policy review that was conducted, and somehow we missed the opportunity to approve the changes that were proposed. So Director Piaskowski is going to put this motion to the floor so that we can dot the i's and cross the very important t's.
Thank you. Per Sports Pavilion Committee recommendations, I move the governing board approve the removal of bowling, tournament, and event examples provided at section 1.0 in policy B04, bowling tournaments as redlined.
Do I have a second?
Yes.
Director Turner seconds. I know I sort of stole your thunder a little bit, but that's basically what happened. You explained all these recommendations, and somehow we did not capture a vote on this particular one. Does anybody have any comments or questions before we put this to a vote? Nothing on this one. So please, and anything from our residents? Anything online? So Director Piaskowski, one more time.
Okay. Per Sports Pavilion Committee recommendation, I move the governing board approve the removal of bowling, tournament, and event examples provided at section 1.0 in bowling policy B04, bowling tournaments as redlined.
Thank you. So a quick voice vote. We'll start with you, Director Grom.
Yes.
Yes.
Chatton?
Yes.
Yes.
Schlemmer?
Yes.
Yes.
And Director Forsey?
Yes.
It's unanimous. Thank you so much. We'll move on to 4.05. Another situation occurred when we were reviewing and approving the policy FI-17. There were changes proposed by Budget and Finance. While we were reviewing that, there was an attempt made to make an on-the-fly improvement to the wording of that policy FI-17. Upon review, the accounting department advised us that the change, while well-intentioned, completely changed the implementation and procedures and the intentions of the policy. So therefore, we are reconsidering the motion and returning to the original wording. So for that motion, we go to Director Becknell.
Thank you. Per B&F Committee and Finance staff recommendation, I move that the governing board approve in gross language revisions to the financial policy FI-17 asset preservation fee at subsection 3.3.4, 3.3.5, and 3.3.6 as redlined.
Do I have a second? Thank you, Director Schlemmer. I was the spoiler and gave the explanation of why we did the changes. So directors, hopefully you've had a chance to review this. We alluded to it a few times previously. So again, it's just, some of these policies were written a long time ago always with great intentions and sometimes hard to interpret those intentions. But in any event, this returns the proposal back to us for a vote. Any discussion on the, Director Grom?
Yeah, I'd just like to raise a point, and it was, I'm going to be voting in favor of this, but the point was made earlier in this meeting. This policy is written in line with our bylaws. Unfortunately, it actually states the buyers will pay this fee. In reality, we here don't really care who pays it. That's negotiable between the seller and the buyer. So potentially for next year, I just think we ought to look at changing the words in our bylaws to reflect that an asset preservation fee will be paid to the association upon a title transfer, and take the word buyer and seller completely out of it, which will then be a change to the policy also, if we make the bylaw change.
It would, as was previously pointed out, the bylaws always trump the policies. Nonetheless, thank you for the suggestion. It's something to consider, anything that would make this easier to enforce. Any other discussion? Questions or concerns from our residents in the room? Online? Nothing online on that topic? So Director Becknell, if you could read it one more time for us, please.
Thank you. Per B&F Committee and Finance staff recommendation, I move that the governing board approve in gross language revisions to financial policy FI-17 asset preservation fee at subsection 3.3.4, 3.3.5, and 3.3.6 as redlined.
Thank you. We'll put it to a vote, starting with you, Director Turner,
Yes.
and Director Schlemmer.
Yes.
No?
Yes.
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 Director Forsey?
Yes.
Thank you. It's unanimous. Lastly, yes, 4.06. We've long been considering a rewrite of our policies to make them more readable, to ensure they are in alignment with each other and alignment with our bylaws. So this is our opportunity to decide what we want to do next after a long conversation. Director Schlemmer, if you would make the motion, please, and then I'll explain.
Thank you, President Novello. I move that the governing board issue a RFP, request for proposal, for an end-to-end RCSCW policy rewrite as discussed.
Do we have a second? Thank you, Director Becknell. Apologies to Katie for the very fuzzy logo. You can see that I didn't use the official one. If you could go on to the next page for us. Just want to bring us all up to speed. It has been a while because we have been rightfully focused on the budget process for several months. But just to bring us back up to speed, we distributed a request for quote. We wanted to get budget line items to ensure we understood this notion of what would it take for us to actually have a legal review of all of our policies for readability, for duplications, and so on and so forth. So we sent out a request for quote. We did get 2 quotes that came back to us, and Directors Grom and Piaskowski joined me because we were shocked at how low the price tag was, just to be honest. But we wanted to ensure that for those dollars that were being budgeted, if they were being budgeted, that we would actually be able to receive the services that we wanted. So we confirmed that. We provided an update here at a governing board meeting because of the length of some of our discussions. It was held, the discussion or the update was at the governing board regular meeting in March. So here we are a couple of months later, but now we need to actually decide what to do with this for this fiscal year. So if we agree today, we would actually obtain some formal proposals so the governing board could decide what to do. Quick reminder, as it says on here, this is not a vote to actually move forward. This is just really to get started with a vendor selection process. We're not approving the funds, just to move forward and consider some official proposals. So the next slide, please. 2 things that would happen here. The governing board would request some formal proposals from the respondents, or more if you wanted, but again, it would follow the procurement policy that we currently have. They'd be sealed bids. We would leverage what we already received back, and the scope, we would ensure that the scope would ensure that alignment of each policy each policy aligns to statute, resolves any duplications or conflicts, and rewrite all those policies for consistency in structure, format, and numbering. And the scope or the deliverables would also include a policy template, so any proposed new policy would follow the same format. We would also ensure that each of the respondents confirmed that it could be done, that should this project be authorized by the governing board, it would satisfy the bylaw that seems to require an annual policy review, specifically in section 6.2. And those same respondents, should the governing board go forward, would review that bylaw and any other sections of the bylaws that require an annual policy review and consider, so the governing board could consider a potential revision to that sequence. So by making this vote, we would get proposals, and then the governing board would review and evaluate those proposals. And you can either select a vendor or decide at that point to not proceed. So that's the vote that we're taking now, would be to just obtain proposals, not to spend the money. Governing board directors, any discussion on that before we open the floor?
I do.
Director Piaskowski?
I have just a slight problem, only because every committee looks at our policies every year, and they all want to put their little fingerprint on it. So for us to spend money on this, I'm just not too sure unless we change policy saying our policies don't need to be looked at for 5 years, because then we know we've got it good. But now, for us to just spend that money is crazy, because we all like to change it, and that's just how it works.
So if you look on this page, it's under number 1, third major bullet, and the last sub-bullet. Review that requirement and make a revision, right? So each of the, you sat in with us and we asked each of the proposals, and they said, there's no statute or statutory requirement or even best practice that would require it. Somehow it's in our bylaws. So there, under the definition of the treasurer's role, I can't remember the number and section, but in our bylaws, there's a specific or a specification that says that the financial policies will be reviewed every 3 years, not every year. So it's just interesting that, again, there's this implication that every committee is going to look at every policy. And part of what we discussed is removing that from the bylaws or considering that. For the upcoming year, though, that would require a bylaw change, which would potentially have to go to resident vote. I don't know if that would be considered resident rights, but if so, it would go to resident vote. In the meantime, if the governing board proceeded forward, this review would satisfy the bylaw requirement. So it would certainly take care of the fiscal year 27 review. And if the governing board agrees and the residents ratify, then it would remove the bylaw requirement of an annual review.
But they're going to do policy, correct? They're not doing the bylaws.
No, but if we would ask them, whomever the respondents are, to review that section of the bylaw and propose a change that we could consider adding into our bylaws next year. So yes, they would rewrite the bylaws, they would rewrite the policies. It's been a long morning. But they would also come back with a recommendation on how to revise that bylaw requirement at 6.2, if the governing board decided to move forward. And again, directors, this is just enabling us to put this topic to bed, right? So there's no special requirement here. I think we've seen, especially this year, but over past years as well, that our policies are sometimes difficult to read. We specifically came up with a challenge right at the start of this governing board year with 2 policies in particular that were very difficult to pull apart. We concluded with legal review that they were not in conflict with one another, but gosh, to someone reading them, it was really hard to pull that apart. So we can do better at making sure that we can rewrite these for clarity. Several of our committees have recommended, both Finance, Budget and Finance, and Properties Committee have both really recommended that we do some kind of an end-to-end review to take the duplications that they've noted, the overlaps and so forth, and to make some action about that. So whether we proceed forward or not, I just want to put this particular topic, since we talked about it a lot earlier in the year, wanted to put this topic to bed for this fiscal year. Are there any other directors who wanted to comment before you went forward? So go ahead, please, Stephen.
So having this on the agenda, I had not seen the motion ahead of time. Just I want to clarify a little bit. First of all, we did do the request for quotes before, and the procurement policy, because this is professional services, that is exempt from the bidding process. That's why you do the request for quotes. We do have funding available based on what we received back in the quotes this fiscal year to do it, if we were to PO it this year to get it at least started and use the funding from this fiscal year. We don't have it budgeted in next fiscal year. Doesn't mean we couldn't work.
It's in the governing board line item.
Yeah, I was saying, not to say we could maybe find it somewhere, so yeah. Good
It
point.
is in the
But,
governing board's budget, yeah.
what I would say though is it would not, because of the procurement process, the procurement process has already been essentially satisfied. You would be duplicating the effort by putting out another RFP or RFQ. And again, because of professional services, that's why you do an RFQ, which is request for quotes through professional services. So however you all want to handle it, I'm just giving you that feedback that you could actually move. I mean, if you wanted to change it, you could actually.
We did not we didn't proceed to the point where we were doing vendor selection at all. Directors Grum and Piaskowski and I simply asked some very simple questions. We didn't come up with an assessment of how to evaluate those respondents. We didn't do that at all. So there would certainly be quite a bit more work that would be left as a result of that. That's the reason why we wanted to just put it to the governing board for a decision today on whether we wanted to proceed. How we proceed would be, thank you for the advisory. If we wanted to do that and move it up, apparently we may be able to do so. But the first thing is to determine if the governing board wants to even proceed. Director Grum?
Thank you, President Novello. I want to follow up on your comment, and that's I was part of those two meetings with the companies that gave the quotes, and afterwards, I'm not overly confident that this review is going to give us the product we want or we expect. So even though the amount of money is not all that great, I didn't come away with a really good feeling from either of the presenters that we were going to get a product that we really wanted, because we really didn't define what we wanted. And so it's tough for them to tell us what they're going to give us, and it's going to meet our expectations. So I'm very much skeptical of even moving forward with this proposal.
I understand. Just so that we're all reminded, we provided each of the everybody that we requested to come back with a quote, were provided access to all of our policies, the full pack of our bylaws, and we're explicitly told that all of our policies would be expected to be redlined and returned back. Whether or not they do that, Director Grom, that we did explain that to a degree, but we would need to, before proceeding forward, the governing board, if we wanted to proceed forward, would need to confirm and make that a part of the explicit deliverables. We did not do that, and we did discuss that. You and Director Piaskowski and I were encouraged but not convinced that they would do this for the monies provided. Any other comments? Anything online on this topic before we go to in-room? Okay, so Mr. Hurley?
Tim Hurley, 120454. The policy for each standing committee says that they are to review every year the policies under their committee. Why do you think somebody from the outside coming in would do a better job than our residents who have given their time and effort to come in and review these things? What makes you think somebody from the outside would do any better? And why tell people that want to be on a committee, don't worry about the policies, we got somebody else taking care of them? Why would you do that?
That was not the implication at all. Oh, am I interrupting you, by the way? Do you have anything? All right.
No, go ahead.
We can stop the clock. When we were talking about this earlier in the year, Tim, it was not that implication at all. It was literally looking at how do we make better use of each of our committees, because there's so much duplication that's potentially there across the committees. And it was starting to take a lot of time to consider rewriting to remove the duplication. That's the reason why we felt a one-time impact of doing or proposing a rewrite to remove duplication, to improve readability. Those are the things that we wanted to ensure were done. And we felt it would be a better use, at the time, we thought it would be a better use of time to have a legal review done, because we had so many complex challenges that came up earlier in the year. Now, 6-8 months later, we may not feel the same sense of urgency. That's what we're about to vote on. But no one at any point felt that an outside firm could do a better job than our residents. That's not the point. But doing this complete end-to-end rewrite for readability, for formatting, these are the things that were taking our committees and the governing board a lot of time to conduct. So we wanted to look at what would it take to have a one-time review done to improve that, one time.
One of the things that helps committees do their work is by reviewing the policies and by digging in, what does this policy mean? What's the ramification, and why do we have it? Several times, committees won't make any changes to some of the policies because they're good as they stand. I think this is an unnecessary effort. So, and I wish you would reconsider it. Thanks.
Thank you. We haven't taken it to a vote yet, but thank you.
Hey, Jim, no worries. Jim Scott, 404-675. I'll take the flip side of that. I had the experience and the honor to sit on the Budget and Finance and the Properties Committee and review all those documents. And they are all over the map in regards to consistency, there's no standardization in those documents at all. They're challenging to read with the numbering. I mean, I'm sorry, but some of them are a dog's breakfast and need a complete rewrite. Yes, when you line it all up and somebody looks at it, I mean, my takeaway was it's an embarrassment in regards to how much variance in these documents there was from one to the other in the same in the finance area topic. It would be nice to have a nice standard format that's consistent, one done, and then that way forward when people come to do the reviews that sits on the committees, that I agree with you, Jolene, Director Piakowski, that we take a heavier hand on whether we do any revisions thereafter. So I encourage that we do it because we do need some kind of a standardization. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Director Turner?
Just throw this out there. Should this be a special committee with representatives from the standing committees to provide some expertise?
If the governing board wants to move forward, that's something that you could do. But right now, we just need to decide whether it's something, an effort that we want to take forward to close the loop on this RFQ process. And then if how it's implemented would be up to the board, yeah. Or not. If the governing board decides that this is not the right time, perhaps that would be another option to consider for conducting the same end-to-end review. Any other discussion before we call it to a vote? Director Schlemmer?
Just from a point of clarity, and having made the motion, I want to be careful here. If I'm hearing the general manager's comments right, this motion may actually be redundant because it sounds like what we did actually qualifies as a RFP. Am I understanding that correct? Or would we now move, or has enough time gone by now that we should go back and reaffirm the quote? Because I know those quotes were done quite a bit earlier in the year.
I guess that's a question for you, Stephen.
Yeah, so you could, I mean, if you went back to those two vendors and said, hey, are you still willing to do it for what you've quoted, given the time that's left, then yes. I would say that there isn't going to be any difference in, I mean, other than if the board wanted to change the way that the wording of it, but my point of it is that technically you don't do an RFP for professional services. You do an RFQ, which is basically asking for quotes. Because the reason why that's done that way, and it's not unique to here, but is in procurement policies, because it's impossible to 100% compare professional services, right? Because you have a law firm, unless you get into the detail of how long they've been there and all that, it's just no way to do it. So what I'm suggesting is that it would only be if you were not satisfied with the two quotes that you got. Now, I can tell you that it was challenged to get the two. We put it out to 3 and we got 2. But if you're not satisfied with the 2 that put in their quote, you could go back out again, but you would still be doing his request for quotes. But you would still want to decide, to your point, the board would still want to decide on, once you receive those back, deciding what, qualifications or which vendor you prefer, which firm you prefer, based on what you receive back.
Yeah,
if you go back out.
I spent, I'm not trying to stand on ceremony here, but I spent decades in professional services as a management consultant, and we always responded to RFPs with a firm proposal that could be contractually enforced. So it's just nomenclature, though. I think what Stephen is trying to say is that we did get enough information that if the governing board wanted to proceed forward, we could. So would it be better to rephrase the motion or to bring it, again, we can bring this to the workshop in June, because the whole idea is there appetite here to proceed forward to vendor selection? So we can rephrase the motion that Director Schlemmer was good enough to make. We can propose a modification or just take it to the workshop. But the concept here, directors, is to determine whether there's appetite to proceed forward or not.
And can I just clarify too, you would still do a contract, just to be clear. So you'd have a contract that would overlay on top of the RFP that you, RFQ, excuse me, that we put out, that would say you would perform all these things. So just to be clear.
But to say that you would never do an RFP is perhaps not 100% accurate, but the point again is, do we need a new motion? Do we need to take this to workshop? If we need to modify the motion that's on the floor, we could do that. So again, the intention here is to determine if the governing board even wants to proceed forward. We've heard that a number of us have some concerns, so.
President Novello, having made the motion, I recommend we proceed with the motion as worded, because I think the issue here is twofold. One is to give the opportunity for vendors to renew the quote they gave earlier, as well as potentially find an alternative. And second, to your point, is this even something the board wants to pursue? I think by leaving the motion on the table, we take a vote. If the vote comes across as no's, then we know the board has no interest. So my recommendation is we proceed with the motion as presented.
And thank you. Again, directors, the intention here is to allow the governing board to decide, not to bind any action, but to decide whether there's an opportunity to proceed forward into selecting an option. If a majority of us, if it passes by majority, we could discuss how to do that. Any other, and we've heard comments from one of our residents. Any other residents comment online? Director Turner? Any other need for discussion? Then please reread the motion one more time, Director Schlemmer, and we'll take a quick vote.
You would ask me that trick question. Okay.
At least we didn't modify it, because I had our parliamentarian over in the corner sweating.
Yeah, I was too. I move that the governing board issue a RFP, request for proposal, for an end-to-end RCSCW policy rewrite as discussed.
Thank you. So Director Forsey, why don't we start with you? We hadn't started with you today. Okay, so Director Forsey's not available, so Director Grom?
No.
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 Okay, the nays have it, so the matter is closed for the year. Thank you, directors, for your consideration and your time. We'll move on now to board director comments, because we haven't made enough. No, seriously, we'll move on to director comments since Sandra's technology doesn't allow her to comment. We'll go to you, Director Grom.
No additional comments.
Piaskowski?
Just want to put a little plug in for the Boost Bar. I've been down there a couple times. I've had the kahuna. Very good. So it's Boost, not the booze, Boost. It's the Boost Bar. And you can add all kinds of things. So, and not a bad drink. I mean, it's a good drink for the price. So enjoy.
And it's adorable. I'm a huge coffee fan, and I also endorse. Director Chatton, any comments?
I just think that we had a really good budget process. We had a lot of conversation, and I think in the end, we came up with a fairly good negotiated budget that should do well for the citizens in Sun City West.
Director Becknell?
I appreciate the fact that we got an approved budget. We're not the federal government. I can't furlough half my staff while we figure this out. So I think that the current operating budget will allow us to continue on and provide the services and the amenities that we try to protect and provide to our residents. And I hope that we're able to meet the expectations for the master plan that come out in September. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Schlemmer?
Thank you, President Novello. While he is in the audience, I would like to commend Mr. Scott and his work at PORA. If you all have not known, he has been out to hearings and he's been fighting on behalf of our residents with the APS rate hearings and things of that nature. So we appreciate you getting out and doing that for the community. And second is on June 23rd, the Sun City West Foundation is going to be having an ice cream social. I know that for us Firebirds, there's not a lot of things that happen during the summer, but if you're interested, go to their website and you can enroll and go to that and have a little ice cream and some fun. And with that, I'll shut up.
For now, maybe. Director Turner, any comments?
Yeah, I'm glad that the community didn't get to see too much of the sausage being made today. We could have been here a long time. So thank you for guiding us through this process to a budget that we've agreed that none of us actually wanted. But that's how the process works.
You're welcome, and I agree. This was it was an arduous process, but I'm really grateful that the directors were not only able, but certainly very willing to speak their minds, and the fact that none of us feels that we won an argument is a good sign that we've reached a consensus or a compromise. As I was sort of jokingly alluding to the song, the Rolling Stones song, but it is true that this isn't about getting what we may want as individuals. It's always about doing what's best for the community, and we have different ways or different thoughts on how to achieve that. But I'm really grateful to the directors for spending so much time over the past several months, and again, so grateful to Budget and Finance for their analysis. None of your jobs are done. Next year's Budget and Finance Committee, all our committees, and the Governing Board, the work and the fun is truly just beginning. So I really thank you all for being so willing to listen to each other and to move forward. Also encouraged by the fact that we've passed a budget that, while maybe doesn't make us feel warm and fuzzy, will enable us to continue to offer the beautiful amenities and services that we've come to enjoy in Sun City West. It truly, to sort of build off of what Director Schlemmer and others, Director Piaskowski and others have said, this is the best community anywhere. It is my dream come true. So those are my comments today, and also wanted to remind us, it was a couple of hours ago, but remember, we have a workshop coming up, of course, but our regular meeting, let's pack that room. And let's hear the wonderful updates, not only about our master plan, but also about our community at large. There's a lot of great stuff to hear about. And with that, appropriately, we turn to our general manager for any comments or updates.
Thank you, President Novella. Just a quick thank you to the board for the work on the budget, as well as the Budget and Finance Committee. You all did a great job on that. I definitely want to point out all the hard work that Cliff Swan did and Terry and his team. There was many times that he was asked to go back and refigure and recalculate and come up with new scenarios, and that takes a lot of extra effort. And he's no longer in the room because he's on the way to a flight right now. But I did want to acknowledge him and his team for all the hard work they've done. Thank you.
Oh, and thanks for that. I missed saying that as well. With that, any attendee comments from our residents? There are a couple that we've deferred from online. Should we read? Let's read some of those back, Director Turner.
Yes, one here which doesn't give us a name and a record number, but we've had similar before, I believe from the same person, which is the water in R.H. Johnson outdoor pool still cloudy? When is it going to be made clear like the other pools? We have another.
Well, we'll have Stephen, if there is a response to that, because we'll just acknowledge this is a frequent comment. It may be from the same person. It's hard to know since we don't know who that is.
I'll just have the same comment I had at the last meeting, which is yes, the water is clear and continues to be clear at the pool and is not cloudy.
Director Turner?
Next comment is from Deborah Johnson, 130208. Meetings are held during times that people are engaged with medical, club, work, and other activities. How about evening or weekend meetings? People can watch, not comment after the fact.
Thank you for the suggestion. I think the governing board can take that under advisement for next year. We're getting a lot of comments like that. Any others?
The final one, again, there's no name or rec card number associated with it, but it's a technical question. It says, please turn on closed captions on the YouTube channel for all broadcasts of SCW meetings.
Thank you for that. Is that something that we'd be able to do going forward? Stephen can take it under advisement. I'm putting Greg on the spot. That's not fair.
I'm not sure that it's possible, but or if it's something that's on our end or the user's end, but we can look into it.
It's definitely, in some cases, on a recording, it's a YouTube option. I don't know if it's available in live, though. So thank you for the suggestion. We'll look into it, take it under advisement. Anything else? Thanks for those. So no other comments in the room? Then as a reminder, our next governing board workshop will be on June 12th. We have a lot of great stuff coming up in the workshop. We'll be talking about our facts and findings. We'll be talking about some of the policies that we deferred from today. We'll also be talking about the Arch Junction pool deck there. And of course, our regular meeting, which is also our annual members meeting, is June 18th at 9 a.m. The annual meeting, the next regular meeting, will be in Palm Ridge in the Summit Room to give us all the opportunity to be there in person. So Governing Board Workshop, June 12th, right here, 9 a.m. And June 18th, our regular meeting, our annual meeting, 9 a.m. in Palm Ridge. We'll see you there. The meeting's adjourned at 11:55.